In a world where voices are silenced,
Please.
one man refuses to lie down.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
He's been punted not once,
40 years they've been trying.
not twice,
You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job.
but 3 times.
You're fired.
He doesn't tell you what to think, but gives you something to think about. Welcome to the Bonafide Podcast with Luke Bona. And he's not
All right, here we go.
done
Hold your ears, folks.
yet.
It's showtime.
Well, g'day, folks, and welcome to another Bonafide podcast. This one is episode 133, and it's the podcast where we like to give you something to think about. We don't tell you what to think, and it really works best if you jump in and get involved. So let us know what's on your mind. Send us your thoughts to community@bonafide.com. Leave us a voice message. What?
Bonafidepod.com.
What did I say?
I don't know. Not that, though.
community@bonafidepod.com, or leave us a voice message 0291289311, and remember to follow or subscribe or do both. You can watch this episode on video on Spotify and of course on YouTube. Coming up, the Alan Jones trial. Now, it is a unique trial in the sense that it's not a jury trial. It's a judge-only trial, and it's being held in a local court. It's not a federal court. It's not a high court. It's not a Supreme Court. It's a local court issue. However, when it's all over, and it could be months, it's actually a magistrate that's now being referred to as a judge, but the magistrate can actually sentence and pass down a sentence if Alan Jones is found guilty of one of the many charges he's facing. James Glissan, our legal will explain how all this works a little bit later on in our podcast. And we're also going to look at the continuing gambling problem in Australia with the Reverend Tim Costello, who is a Baptist minister. He's not anti-gambling, but he believes that poker machines and online gambling are a massive, massive problem in this country, and that governments are ignoring the issues because both bring in revenue. Mostly poker machines, but the online gambling is under review in Canberra at the moment. And the Albanese government is hoping that the opposition will give them their support in the Senate. They want it tweaked. Exactly how, we'll discuss that a little bit later with Tim Costello. Millennial, yes, you're champing at the bit.
Well, just listening to your chat with Tim Costello, it made me think of this video that I recently saw, and it's by the creator prune_masters, and it's about a voicemail that was left for a 22-year-old from a betting company. So let me just show you this.
I haven't heard this yet, folks.
I'm about to show you a voicemail that a gambling company left a 22-year-old kid with a gambling problem.
Oh, g'day, Gordon. How you going? Stu is my name. I'm the National VIP Accounts Manager at okiebets.com.au, where you have a few flutters, Gordon. If you wouldn't mind giving me a ring back at some stage, I've got some pretty good news, which I think you'll be pretty excited about, Gordon, okay?
And from that moment, he receives $200 in his account every Thursday on an ongoing basis to keep him gambling. And have a look at this SMS here. Clearly, he's tried to cut back his gambling. And look how he...
This is what the message says. It says, "Hi, mate. How are you going? I hope you're all good. I haven't seen you around for a good few weeks now. Are you having a break or gone on holidays? Regards, Stu from OKBet."
He signs off on his SMSs as well with a hyperlink directly to the gambling website, so he's only a couple of clicks away from putting more money in. And sending problem gamblers free money to bet with is like sending free cigarettes to people on their deathbed with lung cancer. So behind all the cool, funny ads on TV, the high-profile Instagram collaborations with influencers, gambling companies are doing some insidious shit, really preying on people that they identify as weak. The most shocking thing is that the owner and founder of this company, OKBet, is the current team manager of the Gold Coast Suns. The AFL has allowed him to keep his job despite a huge conflict of interest. This company got fined $100,000 for approaching local footy clubs and giving them cash in exchange for their members to sign up to their gambling app.
So that's pretty shocking behaviour.
That's exactly what Tim Costello was talking about, Kelsey, wasn't it? He wants the gambling institutions to cease and desist with inducements. And that's exactly what that was. It was an inducement.
Yeah, but he's 22 years old and he's said that he doesn't want to gamble anymore. And they're relentless in their approach. And it's I don't know, it's very predatory behaviour. And I can't believe this is still allowed to happen.
That is unbelievable. Please pass that on to the Reverend Tim Costello for us, Kels.
I'm sure he's seen it.
I'm sure he has too. Wow. Well, that's what he's on about. Inducements. He hasn't got anything against having a bet. But fancy, how much? $200 a week in his account with a direct link to that betting account, and then following it up saying, you've been quiet. Why aren't you gambling?
Have you gone on holidays? Why aren't you gambling?
Unbelievable. That is
surely
predatory.
that's like a breach of privacy.
Isn't it? That's incredible.
It's pretty bad.
Wow.
Who else have we got coming up, Luke?
We are motoring with James Ward from drive.com.au. Apart from taking another trip down memory lane, Kelsey, do you know what a rotary Wankel engine is?
No.
Okay, you're going to find out. And whatever happened to the famous RX-7s, made famous by people like Alan Moffat when the RX-7s raced around Mount Panorama back in the Group C days. And sports cars. And a very interesting sports car outing. Oh, it's actually not necessarily a sports car outing. It's a historical car outing that James is going on. And we're also going to look at what are your rights when it comes to insurance and damage to your car because of potholes on our roads. That and more coming up.
Wasn't there like a huge pothole in Victoria that closed down the highway? That's
exactly what we're talking about. And the government has said, we'll give you compensation if your car is ruined because of a pothole, but only if that damage is above $1,600. Well, if you do a rim or a tyre, chances are it's going to come under $1,600. So they're not really parting with anything. Potholes, insurance, classic cars, and a few other things coming up. And we love to also bring you The Man Cave with the Vice Captain, Adam McDonald. We've got a new segment coming up. It's called What's in Adam's Hand? And, well, it's kind of like the secret sound, isn't it, Kelsey?
I guess so.
If you can guess the gadget that Adam is displaying in the Man Cave today, he's going to send you a prize. So there you are. Now, at the recording of today's podcast, Thursday the 13th of August, thousands of students in New South Wales have been urged to walk out of class to protest about what? About Pauline Hanson and One Nation. University students, as well as high school students across Australia, have been urged to skip class today to protest against One Nation and its leader, Pauline Hanson. The protest, dubbed Students Say No to Hanson, it's being led by none other than the National Union of Students. And it could see thousands of students marching in Sydney. They'll be gathering at the Town Hall 1 o'clock this afternoon to express their opposition to what's being described as a fascist right-wing party. Now, students under the age of 18 who are enrolled at school, Kelsey, legally have to be in school. And if they're absent, it's without a doctor's certificate or knowledge of their parents with a reasonable excuse, it's called truancy, which is illegal. Now, these students come under the duty of care of our schools once they go to school. They go in the school gates in the morning until they come out at night. The school provides duty of care, and the school can't do that if they're out at a protest. I like the idea of young Australians thinking for themselves and having a voice. But I've got to ask this question. How many of them would turn up to this protest if it was held on a Saturday and not on a school day, a Thursday? There was a lot of debate on 2GB this morning when I was there as a guest of Phil O'Neill, and it's a regular segment called The Bona Report. We talked exactly about this morning, and here's just a sample of what some of the 2GB Sydney listeners had to say.
Let's go to Nick in Penrith. Hello, Nick. How are you?
Good morning, guys. I love the passion that you and Luke bring to Thursday mornings.
God bless you, my friend.
I love it.
What do you think about this issue?
I was in Greece in 2014 when the dictatorship fell. I saw people being shot in front of me, so I know what I'm talking about. When I witnessed that at 14, that was my beginning of political activism. I was a diehard lefty till I was 25, and I woke up to myself and realised, hey, this isn't going to work. I now work at a school. The paper that's permitted in the school or that's in the school is the Saturday paper. That's a left-wing rag. That is what is happening in our schools. To then turn suddenly 18 and have a vote and we expect it to be a impartial vote is absolutely ridiculous because they've been indoctrinated for all those years.
Let's get to Joseph, who's on the phone in Canberra. Morning, Joseph. Thanks for calling through. What do you think, mate?
G'day, Phil. Hi, Luke. How's everyone? I was listening to Jason on 4BC yesterday, and this similar topic came up, and I think the kids would not have no idea what they're protesting about. And as I texted in earlier, Queensland are doing pretty poorly. I'm based in Queensland, but our NAPLAN results are substandard. I think the last thing we need is a day off for our students.
Chris is on the phone in Ryde. You're on with Luke Bona. Morning, Chris. What do you think?
G'day, Luke. Yeah, I'm against it as well. But the parents also should have some responsibility here.
Morning, Melinda at Normanhurst. What do you think?
Yes, look, I'm against the protests. I think they're very easily influenced at that age.
Let's just remember that this is primarily for university students. I think that the media has kind of jumped onto this idea that there might be high school students there. And I'm sure that they will face the consequences of truancy or whatever. But this is primarily organised by university students for university students because what they're protesting is, I guess, Pauline Hanson's opposition to help university-aged people.
Well, you're kind of right and kind of wrong there, Kelsey, because online the National Union of Students voiced what can be described as an ad urging students of all ages to go to this protest. So on the surface, it may seem as though they're focusing on university students. My interpretation of the National Union of Students online ad was that they're encouraging all students.
What happens to the students when there's teacher protests?
Exactly.
They just stay in the classroom?
Yeah, there's always teachers on call that will be there to supervise. So I think they gather in the classrooms or in the library.
It's all right when they're not learning then.
It's all right when they're not learning then. Exactly, Kelsey. It's all right not to learn when the teachers protest, but it's a massive problem when the kids have left school and are protesting at Town Hall in Sydney and in the suburbs around Sydney.
Now, Luke, when was the last time you went to the dentist?
It was about 8 months ago, and I had a checkup and I had a clean.
Oh, because your tooth was really not well.
Well, I had a checkup and a clean up the road here. Then I went to a surgery down where Dr. Norrie is, and I had a tooth extracted.
Oh, painful.
So, yeah, what happened was I bit. In fact, it happened just before we did one of our podcasts. Remember that? And I was fiddling with it.
Oh, no, it was so annoying. Anyone that watches the podcast, you probably would remember this period of time. It was so annoying because anytime Luke wasn't speaking, he'd be there picking his bloody tooth. It was so annoying.
Yeah, and what happened was I bit on a bit of chicken, and one of my teeth here went...
Gross.
And it opened up like a laptop. So, so I had it taken out. It was not savable. So why do you ask?
So dentists are saying that 1/3 of adults are experiencing tooth decay, with many patients also citing an inability to afford dentistry. So dozens of dentists are at Parliament House in Canberra to warn politicians that delayed dental issues become worse and more expensive to treat. So the federal government has not yet finalised its national oral health plan. I didn't even know that we had one of these, despite dentists consulting on it in 2024.
Well, I've got to tell you something. It's interesting, isn't it, that your mouth and your teeth have always been treated as separate from your body when it comes to your health insurance.
I know. Why is that?
I don't know. And it's ridiculous because if you have infection, gingivitis...
you can get like sepsis or something.
You can get... Absolutely. And if you're going to undergo surgery, they will not operate if you have an infection in a tooth or in your gums. It's ridiculous. And I've always bleated about this. Why, when you have expensive medical insurance, is a completely separate clause for your teeth?
And I suspect it probably has to do more with money than it does with healthcare.
I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. We need better health for our teeth, better awareness. And I think the teeth and your mouth have got to stop being regarded as separate from the rest of your body.
I reckon.
Now, next week, I'm hoping to talk to the UK correspondent in the United States. I'm going to be talking to Ben Downey about a really, really interesting topic. And Kelsey, having been to university, you will be interested in this. Folks, I wonder if you are across the Jason Arday story. Have a look at it, Kelsey. Jason Arday, A-R-D-A-Y, and the downfall of Cambridge University. This, folks, beggars belief. It's the most unbelievable story. The story centres around a bloke called Jason Arday, who was up until recently a professor of sociology of education at Cambridge University. He has been the reason for an inquiry into his academic qualifications and honorary appointments. What happened, Kelsey, is Jason Arday came to the attention of the University of Cambridge, who believes in diversity. You've heard of DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion. And Jason Arday is black and he's young. He claims to have had autism and was non-verbal until he was 11. He said that he taught himself to read and write only at the age of 18. He claims that he's run numerous marathons, I think about 35 marathons in 38 days. Incredible. Was a snooker champion, was an elite football player, and had a number of other PhDs. On closer examination of Jason Arday's academic qualifications, because of complaints from students who said his lectures mean absolute nothing, they're garbled, it's garbage, we're not learning anything. I've taken notes throughout his lectures and nothing seems to be working out. Those students went to the faculty and to the Vice-Chancellor of Cambridge University. Now, let me say this. In the UK, there are only 2 universities that have the prestige of a worldwide educational institution. That is Oxford and Cambridge. In fact, they're often bundled together and they call them Oxbridge. Cambridge University, hundreds of years of tradition, very prestigious, incredibly hard to get into, not to mention expensive. But the Vice-Chancellor of Cambridge saw this young man and because of DIE policies, said he ticks our boxes. He comes from an underprivileged background. He's black. They didn't do any checkups on his so-called academic qualifications. He got a PhD from another university, and a journalist that took notice in this, who was also an academic, because it's easy to catch now, found that his original PhD had been completely plagiarised. Blocks and blocks of it had been lifted from somebody else's work. When he asked questions, he was threatened legally by Cambridge and Jason Arday. He was told to cease and desist, otherwise he would be taken to court with libel. Well, that only focused him even more. The students that complained that they were learning nothing in Jason Arday's lectures, Jason Arday found out about it. The Vice-Chancellor and the faculty named them. Those students, Kelsey, were then marked down. So now the lid is off. The hoax that is Jason Arday. He has resigned. But Cambridge University has massive, massive academic egg on its face. And those students that were marked down are now seeking legal action against Cambridge. This is the academic, it's the Milli Vanilli of academia.
This all started because a person, Nathan Kofnas, he's a US researcher and he is a self-defined race realist. He was previously at Cambridge and then he was terminated for his view that under a true meritocracy, black people would disappear from almost all high-profile positions outside of sport and entertainment, right? So this guy already has a grudge long before he supposedly came across these plagiarism claims.
If Jason Arday's PhD has been plagiarised, and I've read as many different angles on this as possible, it seems as though it was. If you plagiarised something when you were at uni, Kelsey, what would have been the penalty?
You fail the course.
And it's easier to find plagiarism now than it was a few years ago.
I would not be surprised if there has been a little bit of funny business going on, but let's wait until we've got the facts, because what we're hearing right now is hearsay. A lot of these claims haven't been verified. It's just what people heard and overheard.
All right. If he was hired because he ticked all their
Yeah.
diversity boxes. And if the faculty and the Vice-Chancellor at Cambridge rallied around him without checking him because he suited their agenda, that'll be interesting. So I tell you what, let's keep an eye on it.
Now, just quickly, I just want to mention, Luke, because I saw this image of, you know, those cute little fairy penguins on Phillip Island?
They're going to give them vaccinations.
Yeah, they're going to give them vaccinations. And I know we've been kind of following the bird.
Do they give them little needles?
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like those poor little penguins. But it's for the best because
How would you go around giving them all little needals?
And how do you catch them?
And
how
then
do
what
you
if?
catch
And then and how do you know? Oh, did I do that one or did I do that one? Which one?
Surely they would. Or remember on Clarkson's farm where they would spray paint the sheep that had been, vaccinated or had already been
No. What they
touched?
did, Kelsey, they got on the male sheep, the ram.
Yeah, they
put paint on his chest so that when he mounted his good lady lamb, they knew that he'd been there.
No, but with the goats, remember with the goats, they would spray paint the back of the goat when they had their shot or whatever it was that they were giving them.
Yeah, but
so
I was
maybe
talking
they do
about the ram
same
and the
thing.
lamb when they put red paint on the chest of the.
I know. I think we get the point. But yeah, they're vaccinating the little fairy penguins on Phillip Island because this H5N1 bird flu virus, it is now becoming more of a problem. So the chicken giant Inghams, we all know Inghams. They're on lockdown. They're COVID 2.0, right?
Their chickens are in quarantine.
Yes, essentially, because if this does expand more, and it is expanding, that really does, threaten to wipe out a lot of our wildlife population. And the government said on Tuesday it would begin vaccinating priority native species, I'm pretty sure that's the penguins, against the deadly virus, which a top wildlife group warned will cause a tsunami of devastation across Australian bird and mammal populations. So, this is becoming a little bit more real.
I bet back in the day, Batman would have loved a little dose of bird flu to affect the penguin. We've got a voice message, millennial, from Tony, is it?
Oh, Tony.
Hello, Kelsey. Hello, Luke. Kelsey, you most beautiful millennium.
Millennial.
Millennium. I'm thinking of Star Wars again. But
That's Millennium Falcon.
yeah.
But the Millennium Falcon's got bird flu.
Listening to the podcast, it's Tuesday, and just listening to Trevor Long talking about AI. I've been listening to a lot of AI stories on YouTube, and I'll tell you what, there's certain words that trigger AI can't say them right.
Right.
Like if you reading, if there's another word, staring, AI will say it's starring. There's certain words that are spelt the same way, but they cannot work it out. But all right, have fun.
Do you know what?
Kelsey, you'll be safe going to Vietnam.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, the Millennium Falcon's got bird flu, which is a worry. I found out another way you can pick an AI video is AI doesn't do hands very well. And if you look, you've got to slow it down.
Yeah.
The fingers, sometimes you've got 6 fingers and they mesh in.
Yeah. And it's not very good at talking. But just on what Tony was saying there, did you know that if you ask an AI to spell strawberry, it can't do it?
I didn't know that.
It gets really messed up with the R's.
Yeah.
No, that's right. You have to ask it how many R's are in strawberry and it can't answer it.
Really?
Yeah.
But you see, AI is in its early days and it's gotten very good very quickly.
Yeah.
It'll get better. And a lot of these red flags that we look out for, because we want to be sure that what we're watching is a real person endorsing a real product, for example, I think it's going to get harder and harder.
Yeah, it definitely will.
We love AI with our jingles.
Yeah, we do. It's good fun. Now, speaking of AI, we did have a comment on a video we put up with Trevor Long, and this was actually something that I was thinking about after your chat with Trevor. AI glasses, right? They've been around for ages, but they're just really expensive. Like the Meta Ray-Ban glasses, I think that you can get, I don't know, they're between $500 and $1,000, maybe more. They're expensive, right? And no one really had much to say about it. Of course, there was some discourse here and there, but, it didn't make national headlines. But now that these have become accessible to the masses and anyone, old bloke down the road can go grab one for what, $80 I think they're selling for?
$89 at Kmart.
$89. Now that like us povos can go get the Meta glasses, now it's a big problem, and that it was making me think like if we do ban these glasses, all it's going to do is ban poor people from having them. It's not going to ban the rich from having them. They're going to get what they want to get anyway. So maybe we shouldn't ban them just for the equality.
Well, I tell you what, the Nationals, they want them Meta Ray banned.
Yeah.
Did you see what I did there?
I know, you did it in the Trevor Long chat as well. And it's not as funny as you think it is.
Did I? Oh, no. Oh.
You did. Oh, well. Now, Luke, Vanessa, she really wants us to have an astrology
We're
section.
not doing it. We're not doing it.
She sent me someone who I will chase up.
You're off with the fairies.
We are going to try an astrology section. I promise you we will.
Who's going to do it? I'm not doing it.
No, we're going to get
You're going to get
an
an
astrology
astrologer.
person. Yes. Vanessa has told me someone
That'd be
to
an
chase.
astrologist. An astrology person would be an astrologist, wouldn't it?
Okay, an whatever. But I just thought to appease Vanessa's need for astrology, I thought
Her
let's
itch,
just do a little bit
scratch
of
her itch.
astrology in a bona fide way. Now, just remind me, what is your star sign again? Taurus. You're a Taurus, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this is what your
This is it. This is me. Is it?
astrology sign, I don't know what to call it, says today. So, Taurus. Your favorite snack will be out of stock, ruining the next 3 to 5 business days.
Yeah.
Refuse to leave the couch until the universe apologizes to you with delivery fries.
Perfect. What are you?
Perfect. I'm a Libra. Mine says, you will spend 45 minutes staring at a menu, trying to pick a sandwich, cry a little inside, and then order the exact same thing you always get. Indecision is your cardio. That is so true for me. That is actually so true. Let's just do one more because I think, why not? Let's do one from the fire signs, Luke. So just so you know, Luke, you're an earth sign.
She's off with the fairies, just like
I'm
Jackie
an air
O.
sign.
Just like Jackie O. No wonder Kyle punted her.
Okay, I'm going to do Aries, okay? You will, and you're a fire sign, by the way, if you're an Aries, you will run headfirst into a closed glass door today, metaphorically or literally. Slow down. Not every inconvenience is a personal challenge requiring a fistfight. I think that's good. I think you could use some of these for your thought of the day.
Can that be the thought of the day?
Sure.
Thank you so much for joining in. There's a lot more to come. And look, before we go, Rob McKnight is on the YouTube channel, Kelsey.
Yes, you had a chat with Rob McKnight this week about, Alan Jones and Ray Hadley now going to be in the court about the little stoush Carl Sandilands has had with Natasha Barr. And
Nat Barr, my mate
Nat
from
Barr.
Sunrise. Yeah. Natalie Barr is her name. Where'd you get
Yeah.
Natasha from?
I don't know. Anyway, so that is up on the YouTube channel, a little bonus episode. So if you do want to watch something after you've listened to this, then go to the YouTube channel and have a little peek at that.
I'll be on Sunrise tomorrow, by the way, with Natasha Barr.
Nice. What are you talking about?
I don't know yet. They only tell me just before I get there. Then I have to be clever and have an opinion. Don't worry.
We've got plenty of those to go around.
We've got plenty. I'm happy to sell some on eBay. I got most of them from eBay. Coming up, the Legal Eagle, James Glissan. Well, in media circles, it's been described as the trial of the decade, maybe the trial of the century, I don't know. But the Alan Jones trial, which is taking place at level 3 of Sydney's Dowling Centre, is a trial of great interest. And it's just fascinating to watch each day's proceedings being reported through various arms of the media, and they're all reporting pretty much the same thing, and by law they have to. You can report on what is actually said, and opinions aren't really warranted. It's interesting that this is a judge-only trial, not a jury trial. I guess, well, I don't guess, I can tell you wouldn't be able to find a jury in Sydney that wouldn't, A, know of Alan Jones or have an opinion on him. It could be argued that you couldn't find a judge that isn't in the same position, but judges have to rule on legalities, and if they err in law, that is looked over. The way a judge rules and forms his or her decision on what they are presented with in the court is picked over with a fine-tooth comb, and if they're found to have erred in law, the whole thing can be thrown out. So I think a judge-only trial was probably the only way, but our legal eagle is James Glissan from Glissan and Associates, and he can explain more about this. James Glissan, it's a fascinating case, this, and I'm sure you've been watching it with great interest, as I have. Let's go through it. Last week, We heard from complainant Jay, who has made plenty of allegations. And just remember, the defence counsel is an absolute ruthless tiger in Gabriel Bashir, senior counsel, who spent most of last Friday picking apart complainant Jay's testimony with fabrications, dates that didn't add up, etc., trying to discredit a witness, which is what a defence counsel is supposed to do. So it's all playing out rather interestingly, but there are more witnesses to come forward, more complainants. Plenty, by the way, dropped out. Plenty dropped out. And you ask yourself, why is that? As a lawyer, later you can explain, does that mean that what they said wasn't true and they've changed their minds? Or did the DPP go, nah, maybe not strong enough to take to court, we'll let that one go? I don't understand it. You know how these things work. First of all, let's get to this judge-only trial. Are you surprised? And do you think that a trial of this magnitude is being held in a local court?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, and it's not been very heavily spoken about, and I'm not sure why, but this isn't technically a trial. Technically, it's a hearing because it's at the local court. So when you're talking about something like this and the amount of media buzz around it, you would expect it to be at the district court, maybe the Supreme Court, depending on what the allegations are. But because this is at the local court level, it's only ever going to be judge alone. And it's only very recently that magistrates have started to be called judges. That only changed in the last, I think, 6 or 8 months. Before that, we would have been calling this, Magistrate Walsh instead of Judge Walsh. And I think that's really led to a lot of the confusion as well.
Okay. Yep.
So no, it's not surprising. And when I was prosecuting, this is the sort of stuff I was prosecuting in the local court. I was prosecuting sexual touching, even more what I consider to be more serious offences, which is child abuse material. A lot of stuff ends up in the local court that people would never expect to be at the lowest rung of the judicial ladder.
Why do you think so many of the complainants or witnesses decided to pull out?
Well, I don't know if this is the tricky part, right? Because a lot of this isn't able to be reported on fully, and it won't be until the end because of the sub judice rules, which, as you and I know, mean that you can't report on things that might affect the outcome. But we're talking about, I think it was over 70 witnesses, which is a huge number for the local court. I mean, that's probably one of the highest I've ever heard.
The charges were reduced from 26 to 22.
Which sounds like a lot, but I've run matters in the local court that had like 56 charges. So it's not by itself unique. The number of witnesses is very, very high, as I was saying before, but witnesses can't really drop out. Like a prosecution, when they call a witness, they subpoena them. And on penalty of imprisonment sometimes to bring them before the court, they can't just opt out. So it may have been a technical or a tactical decision on the prosecution. Maybe it didn't take it far enough. Maybe it wasn't particularly relevant, or things may have changed between the negotiations between the parties to try and reduce the scope. I mean, like, we're still talking about months-long evidence, so it's not really reduced the scope. So that is a mystery to me, just as it is to you.
So you've got complainant Jay, who will not be named. And on Friday, it was extraordinary. The magistrate, put a suppression order on what Now, complainant Jay is not in the courtroom. Complainant Jay is in a separate room on video.
Very common.
And there were parts of the testimony that the judge originally said, no, we'll put a suppression order on this, but then lifted that a little bit later on. So we heard late on Friday exactly what was said. A lot of it's very distasteful, what's being said.
Yes.
And of course, I mentioned that Mr. Jones's defence, it's the defence's job to discredit a witness. And she went about doing that. He ended up joining the police force, was then sacked from the police force, and they did their best to try and discredit this person with his vagaries surrounding dates of what happened and et cetera, et cetera. That all plays into the mind of the judge or the magistrate. Why would there be a suppression order and then that be lifted?
Well, suppression orders aren't automatically given. So the standing default position is that because we're meant to have open justice, everything should be on the record, it should be public. There are a couple of scenarios where you might be able to successfully argue that you need a suppression order. It might be to prevent the reporting of it, for example, until another witness has come and gone, or it might be because you got to remember witnesses aren't all in the court at the same time. They're heard individually. It might also be the case that some of it may have been, and I don't want to speculate too much, but it may have been, it may be the case that there were some aspects to it which may have been damaging to other people without being properly substantiated. But at the end of the day, once that suppression order is lifted, that indicates to me that it was likely more that they didn't want it to interfere with the reporting of the matter than anything else. And by that, I mean influencing more witnesses. Because as we said, this is a judge-alone trial. So the judge, at least theoretically, is not going to be influenced by reporting.
So I guess they'll argue that his complainant Jay's testimony is vague, inaccurate, fabricated. Interesting, the complainant Jay said, I'll sign something that says I don't want money. I don't want any money out of this. I just want justice done. Does that carry any weight in the court, saying something like that?
Not for a criminal matter, only because you're not going to get money out of it. This isn't a civil matter where you're seeking damages. It may be down the track that damages are sought if this is proven, or maybe if it isn't proven. But generally speaking, that wouldn't carry much weight in a criminal matter. You know, you talk about the discrediting or attacking the reliability and all that sort of thing, all of which is perfectly valid, and it's what the system is there for. It's why we have what's called the adversarial system, where the two parties go as hard as they can against each other. And the theory is that in that, the truth will eventually emerge. But there are some there's some unusualness when it comes to sexual complaint evidence. Right? So one of the big ones is that you can't cross-examine on past sexual history or sexual conduct, which in theory makes sense, because you're saying that, you know, the old idea that somebody who is promiscuous, that would have some effect on their reliability, credibility for a complaint brought later, that's not right. And I completely understand that. But the downside to it is, and speaking from personal experience without giving too much information about the case away, there have been circumstances where there have been criminal prosecutions brought against people for, let's say, sexual assault, sexual touching. As the defense, you know that the complainant has done this, in this particular case I'm talking about, not the Jones case, every year for the last 4 years against different people, right? That's relevant. That's relevant evidence. There's no doubt about that. But because of the way the Evidence Act works, it doesn't allow you to bring it up or to question people about it.
That's a really interesting point, James Glissan, because I have been wondering, and this is early days, we've only had 1 week. Very, very early days. To discredit Mr. Jones, would it be accessible in a court of law to bring up, for example, his well-publicised indiscretion in a London toilet? Where he was arrested and then let off, and that's well publicised. That's well publicised. I don't have to fabricate any of that. So would the prosecution, do you think, if you were prosecuting this, would you bring that up to add to what you believe Alan Jones' character is about?
Well, here's the thing, and this is something that I personally have a lot of issue with, and it's something I can fairly speak to because on the one hand, I've used this as a prosecutor and I didn't feel great about it, but it was available and that's the job. And then on the other hand, being defense, I hate that it's available because it makes no sense to me at a fundamental level. So you know how we just spoke about the sexual history of a complainant not being admissible? But here's the thing. There's this other aspect of the Evidence Act called tendency evidence. And tendency evidence is immensely powerful. I mean, immensely powerful.
What is that? What is that, James?
So tendency evidence, I'll tell you what it was, and I'll tell you what it very, very recently has changed to. So tendency evidence used to be the old common law evidence of similar fact, right? So you'd say that, you know, there were allegations, using the Jones example that you just gave me, there were allegations however many years ago, and let's say they were found to be true. And then there's another criminal case brought after the fact, and they say, well, the facts in the one that was proven and the facts in the one that we're trying to prove are very similar, and therefore the court should be able to draw a conclusion that there is a tendency to act in that way, right?
Yes.
So the problem, and that already was very, very powerful evidence. Now, the problem at least in my humble opinion, is that earlier this year, the High Court did what lawyers call clarify the way in which it's meant to work. But for anybody who's not a lawyer, what that really means is they changed how it works. So tendency evidence is what we just discussed. Proven facts used to be able to be taken to prove whatever the current allegation is. And there was a big controversy this year in legal circles. So what happened in that is there was a case in the New South Wales Court of Criminal Appeal, so the highest appeal court in the state for criminal matters, that said that there was an argument that there were 6 unproven acts, right? All were similar to each other. And what happened is it went to the CCA, the Court of Criminal Appeal, and they said, well, unproven acts, 6 unproven acts can't reinforce each other that they happened because it's circular reasoning, meaning that you're saying allegation 1 tends to prove 2, tends to prove 3, all the way back to 1, and it's just infinitely strengthening. The CCA said, well, that's not permissible. That's not how the legal system is meant to work. That's unfair, right? Going back to what we were talking about with complainant evidence versus prosecution evidence. And the awful thing, at least in my opinion, it's terrible timing for Jones, is I think it was 3 months ago, definitely this year, that case went to the High Court on appeal. And the High Court said, no, there's nothing wrong about this. There's nothing circular about it. It can work that way. So the problem is, we have these 22 charged acts in the Jones case. And because of the way that tendency evidence is now allowed to work, that means that they, even if they're not proven, which they're not yet, and they may not be, the unproven charges can all reinforce the likelihood of each other that it happened. So you have that on the one hand, which is immensely powerful. And then on the other hand, you have the fact that the defense can't cross-examine the complainants about similar tendencies or similar history.
Now, I get that, and I get how that could sway a jury, which is just 12 people at random, right?
Yes.
But it wouldn't be able to legally sway a judge, or in this case, a magistrate who's being called a judge. They should see through all that, know the law, and know what's admissible and what's not, and not have their opinion or their mind swayed by emotion and evidence that doesn't relate to the charges and the allegations being presented to them in court today.
So I'm less optimistic about that. I have actually appeared in front of Judge Walsh before, and I want to put it on the record that I think that he's a fantastic judge, very, very fair-minded, and he approaches things very fairly. Even with that in mind, you've got to remember that this isn't really swaying an opinion, because in a judge-alone trial, whether that's the local court or any higher court, they are both the what's called trier of fact, so whether or not they believe something has occurred beyond a reasonable doubt, and the trier of law. And the problem is, when you're looking at the way in which tendency evidence works in this case, now that the case of AR was handed down by the High Court, is that that's binding precedent. So even if Judge Walsh doesn't necessarily agree with the logic behind the precedent, if the prosecution relies heavily on that judgment, which I imagine that they will, it's not really something he can steer away from, because it's something that came down from the High Court, from the absolute top.
Yeah. To us, it's complicated, and I've got to be honest, it's kind of car crash stuff where you watch and you read about what went on in court, but you don't really want to read about it because it's quite vile. The allegations, not the behaviour. We don't know if it was the behaviour. The allegations are quite vile, and it's very, very distasteful. Let me ask you this then. If it's a judge only, and you say it's not a trial, it's a hearing.
That's right, yeah.
So how do we know that Judge Walsh, how do we know how does the system appoint a judge to a trial or a hearing like this? Do they have a number of judges and they question them and they say, do you feel this way about Mr. Jones? Do you not feel this way? Did you used to listen? Are you a conservative voter? I don't know. How do you pick a judge?
Yeah. No, okay, I see where you're coming from with that. No, they don't. So all judges from the local court through to the Supreme Court through to the High Court, when they take that role, when they're sworn into that role, they are trusted to be able to make impartial decisions regardless of what their personal views might be. And I've got to say that, at least from my experience and the experience of others who have been in this job for decades longer than I have been alive, there's really almost been no evidence to suggest that they don't do that. Their own experience, of course, will come into how they find matters of fact, but how they apply the law is judiciously. It's the way they're meant to. So it's not like that at all. However, in saying that, they're probably not going to give a matter of this magnitude or this much media buzz to a junior judge. They're going to give it to somebody relatively experienced or somebody that is, I don't want to say capable, because technically they're all capable, but somebody who's more comfortable with the amount of pressure that would come with something like this.
And there's enormous pressure on Judge Walsh.
Yeah.
As I said in the introduction, because he is not supposed to be emotive. He is to make rulings on law. And if he sways away from that, even by a fraction, the defence will pore over his findings and his rulings with a fine-tooth comb, and it could be thrown out. So everything he says has to be 100% by the law, and his ruling has to be 100% by law, not swayed by emotion.
No, and look, for a matter this large, I'd imagine that this is going to be a written judgment. I'd be very surprised if this was an oral judgment given immediately after all the evidence.
Why? What's the difference?
Well, the difference is, so mostly in the local court, and I think this is really worth talking about, mostly in the local court, once the prosecution's evidence is heard, if the defence calls a case, the defence evidence is heard, and then the submissions are made. So that's where each side gets to summarise the evidence and put their case in the best light that they can before the judge makes a decision. Most of the time in the local court, the judge will then think about it. They may take some time to think about it or to review some of the evidence, but often they will just say, great, I've heard everything, I've come to the decision, this is the decision, this is how it works, these are the reasons for it. For something like this, where you're talking months and, 70 plus witnesses, that's probably not going to be the case, because it would be impossible to do that all for anybody off the top of their head. They're going to need to go through the transcripts. They're going to need to go through the documentary evidence and make sure it's all really, really well set out. And then with the likelihood of appeal being so high, regardless of who wins, I think that Judge Walsh will be very careful in making sure that every train of thought that he has had is recorded properly in the 100%. Judgment.
Yeah, 100%. How long do you see this going on for?
76 witnesses. 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
Look, and it depends, because a lot of this is historic stuff. So it's evidence from a long time ago, and that has its own challenges.
Like the Ben Roberts-Smith that you and I talked about, historical evidence, witnesses living overseas, witnesses' memories not being what they were if it were fresher. It's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare, and it's not just a nightmare from a theoretical perspective, but from a very practical perspective, it's extremely difficult. So, look, this is going to take months. There's no way this is getting done in a week or two. I'd be extremely surprised. One of the other things that's worth bearing in mind, and to put this into perspective properly, is that even though this is a media spectacle, right, because of who is on trial.
Oh, and some of the players, Peter Fitzsimons has been named, Ray Hadley's been named, and the paper on Saturday talking about the high-profile people who were sticking thick with Alan Jones. There are high-profile names everywhere. It's voyeuristic.
It's very voyeuristic. But this is not an unusual case for the local court. This is really very quite common. Very. And it's not even at the high end of it. So I'm not saying that sexual touching is not a horrific thing, because it absolutely can be. What I am saying, and I'm happy to stick my neck out here and go on the record, is that when you look at this and the amount of resources that have been thrown at this, because typically a police prosecutor, which is what I used to be, would be running this case, no doubt. There were cases that I ran that I think are just as, if not potentially far more serious, when it comes to the type of allegation, not the people, but the type of allegation, where you're talking about millions of electronic files of child abuse material, when you're talking about school-aged girls who are victims of offences, and there are police prosecutors running it, and there is nowhere near the amount of resources that have been poured into this. So it's really fascinating to me to see how much money and how much by way of resources is being poured into this. And I'm not saying it's purely because it's Alan Jones, but I am a little bit saying that it's purely because it's Alan Jones. And then you look at everybody else who is just as much of a person, but doesn't have the fame behind them. And I suppose in this case, the infamy, even though it's not proven, who are genuine victims, and they don't have anywhere near the amount of resources or preparation put into it. Most prosecutors are picking files up on the day because of resourcing issues. So it's just incredible to me to see that all the stops can be pulled out if there's the drive for it.
I guess the defence is going to ask for motivation to bringing these complaints to the DPP. And I guess the logical answer for them would be, we want justice done. And because it's not a civil case, there's no money involved.
Then there aren't any damages involved, but there's a lot of money involved.
This is the important question.
Yeah.
So this goes, let's say, 2-3 months, and Judge Walsh finally makes a decision and hands down his decision on the complaints, the charges, and they're criminal charges. Is there a sentencing involved in this because it's a hearing, or what happens now? Does Judge Walsh, if there is a sentence to be handed down, does he hand down the sentence at the end of this hearing?
Yeah, but that's going to be its own set of proceedings. But I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is something that I haven't seen reported anywhere, and I think it will absolutely blow people's mind to realise this. And it comes right off the back of what we were just talking about with the amount of money being spent on this prosecution, the resources, the time, the witnesses, everything.
Millions.
So there are 20, and this is from memory, there are 20 counts or 20 charges of assault with an act of indecency from memory, and 2 sexual touching charges. Now, I might be completely wrong on that, but the important thing is there are over 20 charges, right? Let's say, for argument's sake, that each of those carries a maximum of 2 years. That will not be true. And if people want to fact check me, go for it. It's not true, because there are different charges. They have different max penalties. But work with me here. So basic math, 20 counts times a maximum of 2 years each is 40 years, right? Now, that's never going to be the case.
And Mr. Jones is 85.
And he's 85. But that's never going to be the case, because you have to take what's called proportionality into it. You have to bring all of the charges together. So let's say you split it down the middle and you say, well, the maximum sentence then would be 10 years, right? What do you think the maximum sentence that he could get in the local court is?
I don't know, Mr. Legal Eagle. Please, you're leading this witness.
It's 5 years.
Right.
That's the cap. There's a jurisdictional cap.
Right,
So
okay.
even if there were charges that had 7 years, 14 years, and we've seen this more and more as the indictable offences start to get brought down to being able to be heard in the local court, it does not matter what the maximum penalty could be. In the local court, there is a jurisdictional limit, meaning that the court cannot go beyond it, of 5 years. So the immense amount of expenditure on this versus in the prosecution's best case, even though they shouldn't be looking for a conviction, they should just be looking for the right outcome. The most extreme version of that is 5 years. Absolute maximum, which is just absolutely nuts to me. Not that that's the case, but that so much has been put into this when the potential maximum penalty is so much lower than what people would expect it to be.
Yeah. James Glissan, it is, as I say, it's distasteful, but it's fascinating. And let's just hope that the truth prevails.
Definitely.
And let's hope that justice is carried out.
Yeah, just a fair hearing,
That's exactly.
with the least amount of controversy as humanly possible in the circumstances.
Oh, no, that's not going to happen, James.
No, it's not, but I can dream.
That is not going to happen. James Glissan, always good, always informative, always educational. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, mate. Always a pleasure.
Oh, I should say my learned friend. And why don't we catch up a little bit down the track, and you can give us some more thoughts on how this is going.
Whenever you need me, mate, I'm here.
James Glissan, Glissan and Associates. The last time I had the Reverend Tim Costello on the Bonafide podcast, we got an enormous response. Now, some of it, yes, in fairness, people were saying he's just an anti-gambler. He wants to take away Australia's freedom. He wants more bureaucracy and more red tape in the way. It's a free world. It's a free country. We should be able to have a bet. I think those comments come from a misunderstanding, because the Reverend Tim Costello has always said he's not anti-gambling. He is against gambling, penetrating your life surreptitiously and feeding off people's, is it a mental illness? Is it a disease? Is it like alcoholism? Is it like anything else? But he's always said that he's not anti-gambling. He was also in charge of World Vision. He's a Reverend minister, Baptist minister. But his voice about gambling is regulation and not letting the monster take over, not taking away your freedom. Have I got that right so far, Reverend Tim Costello? Welcome back.
So good to be with you. Yes. So many of the gambling industry, sadly, even the Prime Minister, have tried to frame me up as anti-gambling. Part of the problem, I think, is I have a reverend in front of my name. Therefore, I must be anti-gambling. My grandfather was a cockatoo on the lookout for an SP bookie, and my father could always pick a winner at the races. I never give up with any problem with this. I think I might have last time explained to you when I, as a lawyer, represented a woman who'd stolen $60,000 from her employer. A middle-aged woman, happily married, 3 kids. She was gambling on the pokies when they were introduced. I represented her. She went to prison for 4 years for stealing $60,000. A woman, middle-aged, who'd never even had a parking fine or a speeding ticket, a model citizen. And so I visited her in prison and said to myself, how does a middle-aged, law-abiding woman end up in prison for 4 years? That's when I heard the profound story of her addiction, the dopamine release in the brain sitting in front of the pokies machines. Doesn't happen for everyone, but happens for a lot. And that's why I wrote a book, Want to Bet, and that book was in the year 2000. I have never been anti-gambling. Adults absolutely have a right to gamble. I've never been a prohibitionist. Never, ever. But I get fitted up. Mm-hmm. My concern, and it's the Alliance for Gambling Reform, it's not the Anti-Gambling Alliance, it's Alliance for Gambling Reform has been. Why are we the greatest losers in the world in Australia? Because we have the weakest policies. We have allowed the industry, particularly with gambling ads, to capture sport, to capture kids' minds. I'm not anti-gambling. I'm saying, why can't we do what European nations have done? And Peter Murphy recommended, ban the gambling ads, absolutely have a right to have a punt. The Prime Minister loves to say, he was saying it again, and other ministers, I've got the balance right with my package, the right for people to have a punt, the freedom to have a punt. And nobody else has ever questioned the freedom to have a punt. The Prime Minister knows that is a straw man, a complete misrepresentation. When I met him, and he said, well, Tim, there are people out there trying to prohibit gambling. I said, who? Well, I can't name them, he said. But there's organisations out there. I said, which organisations? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, the Prime Minister's own private secretary in the meeting leaned across and said, Prime Minister, there are no organisations out there trying to ban gambling. We're talking about banning the gambling ads. That's what the Murphy report, a Labor MP in her inquiry, talked about. So absolutely never been about banning gambling.
Let's circle back to this spot in a sec, because before the Parliament at the moment is Anthony Albanese's gambling reform package, and it hasn't cleared the Senate at the recording of today's podcast. It needs coalition support, and we'll come back to that and what that reform package involves. But let's just take a little step down memory lane, because I was in a discussion with a group of friends recently about my chat with Kate Sezelja, that was unbelievable. And thank you, Tim Costello, for putting us in touch with Kate because her story is compelling. And if you haven't heard that, folks, go back to a previous Bonafide podcast and listen to the whole thing. And you can actually watch it because she was on video like Tim is now. It's an amazing story. And it really centers around poker machines and not advertising like you see now with online sports betting, which is just everywhere. In fact, dedicated sports programs, rugby league, for example, have a dedicated segment as to what the odds are. And bet now, always bet responsibly, blah, 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 blah. But it's the sports gambling sponsorship is actually now a vital part of a sports presentation program. It's not a separate ad in a commercial break. It's part of the program. We'll get back to that. But let's go back in time and you think, what is it about the Australian persona that is tied with gambling? And you know, you look back to World War I and the trenches and Gallipoli and Two Up and Aussies liking to bet and two flies crawling up a wall. And I can only go back to my immediate memory, distant memory. Yours might be a little bit clearer than mine. But back in the day, actually, we'll go way back before you and I were even born. And you mentioned your dad was an SP bookie. Back in your granddad, back in the 1800s, horse racing was the go. And it was really aimed at the upper class. You know, you had to dress up. You went to the track and there were on-course bookmakers where you made a bet. Horse racing back in the day when it first came into New South Wales was really not aimed at the working class, but everyone liked to bet. And it was all regulated. So when the on-course bookmakers had the monopoly on people having a bet, that's when the SP bookies, the off-course bookmakers, started to emerge, like the speakeasies during Prohibition, and they went underground, and you knew where they were, and they could offer probably better odds than the on-course bookmakers because they didn't pay tax, and it was quite attractive, and the bloke in the suburbs knew where to go, and he would also buy his illegal home brand beer when the pubs closed at 6, and SP bookies. Then the government said, well, hang on, we need to regulate this. We're not getting our money out of this. So they started the TAB, the Totaliser Agency betting, which also meant you had to get out of your house and go to a betting shop, which was now regulated by the New South Wales government. But it took a bit of effort. You had to get out of the house, off your ass, and go and have a bet. And they didn't serve drinks or food or alcohol. There were long benches with the paperwork, and they were designed to get you in and out. This is only my opinion when you look at the history of betting and the SP bookies. Then the introduction of poker machines, and not just in big clubs, but poker machines arriving in the suburbs.
Yep.
On every corner, in every pub, a VIP room. You could go in there and it didn't take much effort. With online betting, you can do it from your house, from sitting on the toilet, from being in your bedroom, from anywhere. And we are bombarded. And folks, I put it to you, next time you're watching any sports program, presentation, online sports betting is a massive part of that presentation. The advertising dollars are huge and hard probably for the networks to say no to. And when you look at the enormous amount of revenue that's raised by poker machines in New South Wales, nearly 200,000 poker machines, only outstripped by Nevada. It's the gambling capital of the world. In Western Australia, if you want to play a poker machine, you've actually got to get off your ass and go to a casino. But it's very hard for the television networks to say no to the online gambling advertising, and it's obviously very hard for governments to say no to the revenue that gambling provides, and particularly poker machines on every corner. So let's bring back now to where we are today. I'm talking too much, Tim. I'm talking too much.
Your history is right, and the racing industry was for gentlemen.
Yep.
So the working class could not get access.
With top hats and tails and
exactly
and a strict dress code. Yep.
And betting was only on the track, and therefore the working class were denied. John Wren, who was the Kerry Packer of his time, who started what was called his illegal tote in Collingwood. It was a tea shop in the front on Johnson Street, and at the back, Sackville Street, it was a lumber yard. But nobody ever bought any tea, and nobody ever bought any wood. That was for the working class to actually go and gamble. So what did John Wren do? He built his own racing tracks for the working class. Near Flemington, he had a track at Ascot Vale. In Brisbane, why do you have Doomben and Eagle Farm racetracks next door to each other? One was for the gentlemen and one was John Wren's for the working class. So that's the history until they said, right, we've got to actually unify this. And the TAB was formed where you had to go to place a bet and it was legal. Otherwise, before that, all gambling off a racecourse site was illegal. The TAB in the 60s and 70s could not serve food or drink. It did not even have chairs, deliberately, because in the public's mind, gambling and vice belong together. That's what it was called in the policing department, the gambling and vice. So you would not encourage people to gamble with food and chairs, and you go in, you'd make your bet, usually on horses, greyhounds, you'd leave. What then happened was a revolution. 1955, pokies became legal in Sydney and New South Wales. The only other place in the world where pokies were legal was Las Vegas, run by the mafia.
Yep.
That's why New South Wales has 35% of all the world's pokies in pubs and clubs. Pubs and clubs. Most pokies are in casinos, and I don't have a problem with that. That's destination gambling. You planned a night out. You have to get to the casino, pay for your parking, your meal. You've got to get home. When they're on every fifth block in pubs and clubs,
VIP rooms,
you weren't intending to gamble. You were intending to shop. And you have an extra half an hour on your car parking, and there's always a venue open. The Productivity Commission at the Gambling said it's accessibility. We have so many of the world's pokies in pubs and clubs. That's why we have the greatest gambling losses. Failed public policy.
Now, I just want to go back in history. There's a great piece of footage which I'll find, and I think it was an ABC program in the 70s, but it's in black and white. And it's a huge busload of people, mostly women, going from Victoria across the border into New South Wales in the Albury to play the pokies.
That was happening up until 1991, Luke.
Yeah, and the bus driver on his microphone says, "Who's here for a good time? Yay! How much money are you going to spend?" And they wave in the air. They're waving their money in the air. They're excited. And they had to go over the border from Wodonga into Albury to gamble. And there was a whole industry on it, bus tours and travel agents.
Same in Queensland. You had to go over the border into Tweed Heads
yeah.
to play the pokies. And that didn't change until 1993 in Queensland and Victoria.
Yeah. So why did it change in Victoria? I know that you and Jeff Kennett weren't the best of friends. And in fact, you've had some massive stoushes over the years. So did Victoria look at the revenue going into New South Wales and say, we want a slice of this? What happened?
So it was the Labor government, and it said, we're broke in Victoria. You might remember the John Cain Kearney years when the joke was, what's the capital of Victoria? $7.50. We were bankrupt. And the gambling industry literally said to the Labor government, we have a great plan for you. If you allow pokies, like New South Wales got them, to go everywhere, you will have money rolling in to state treasury. So it was driven by Victoria being broke. Queensland at the same time did the same thing, actually, but for slightly different reasons. So when it got pokies in 1992, 93, that woman I defended as a lawyer who got addicted was 1993. Pokies were introduced without any consumer warning, and suddenly people who had never had addiction problems or crime problems were suddenly finding they were getting addicted.
But isn't it still free choice to go into that dark, dank, smoky VIP room and put money in and have a slap?
Yes, it is. But what happened was it moved culturally under Jeff Kennett. You mentioned that name. So the Kane-Kerner Labor government loses. Pokies are allowed. Joan Kerner has made the decision to allow license for Crown Casino. Later says the worst decision of my life. But anyway, the Premier, Jeff Kennett, said, we are having a gambling-led recovery in Victoria. When he opened Crown Casino, he said, this casino represents the new spirit of Victoria. This casino is a beacon of hope for Victoria. So culturally, gambling moved from being in the police department gambling and vice, and we allow gambling, it's legal, but we don't encourage it, to Jeff Kennett, who was a very powerful premier, being the loudest spruiker of gambling. It's the gambling-led recovery. What happened was suddenly gambling became Victoria's saviour. And I remember, being shocked when Kennett said that at the opening of Crown Casino. Kennett wrote to all the 10,000 Crown Casino employees a letter thanking them for the magnificent job they're doing for Victoria. He didn't write to nurses and teachers. It was to gambling employees. So there was a profound cultural shift that made gambling in public minds absolutely not just normalised, but our saviour, literally our saviour.
And it's funny you mentioned Crown in Victoria, because if I can mention Crown in Sydney at Barangaroo, and if you go into and look into the close to corrupt way that was allowed to happen, public land, no tenders, a meeting organised by Alan Jones and James Packer with Barry O'Farrell at Alan's apartment at Circular Quay, later on air, both denying, Packer and Barry O'Farrell, denying that any meeting had taken place, but Jones had already spilled the beans. It was public land, but there were no tenders put out. There was already a deal in place with Star City Casino, which they broke, and Crown, now the tallest building, the glass tower that no one wants to live in, was allowed to go ahead.
Similar story in Melbourne. This is the power of the gambling dollar.
Both casinos and the other one up on the Gold Coast and in Macau, all designed to bring in whales from the Asian gambling markets.
Yeah.
And dealing with illegal money, laundering, doing business with known criminals. And how it was allowed to go ahead, unbelievable.
Yeah, the lie sold to us is it won't hurt locals. We're going after rich foreigners. Now, I don't mind if you're getting rich foreigners, but the rich, two things. Firstly, within a year of Crown opening, it was actually Melburnians in a 30-mile radius who are losing their money. The rich foreigners, as the Royal Commission into Crown showed, were laundering dirty money, drugs money and crime money. And look, same story as the Barry O'Farrell, Alan Jones story.
James, who got out of it. But and remember, Crown Sydney's gambling licence was revoked.
Yes, as was, and Crown's in Melbourne was suspended.
In Melbourne?
In Melbourne, the casino that Joan Kerner approved was to be in Carlton, much, much smaller. Jeff Kennett said, no, we're giving it the prime site on South Bank, which was to be the Melbourne Museum. The Melbourne Museum was kicked off to Carlton, and the prime site on South Bank in Melbourne, and Crown grew to 3 times the size of the original tender brief under Kennett. We forget that casinos, massive casinos downtown on prime sites is an Australian phenomenon. This doesn't happen in the rest of the world. In the rest of the world, apart from Las Vegas, American casinos are on the edge of cities. In the rest of the world, you don't have massive casinos downtown. Now, Crown Casino Melbourne is 3 times the size of the biggest casino in Las Vegas. This was a complete capitulation by our premiers and policymakers.
Bigger than MGM, the Bellagio, Caesar's Palace, Circus. Bigger than them.
Vegas, yeah, bigger. Yeah, Crown. Crown's footprint in the Crown complex is much bigger.
Wow.
What we saw in Australia, and this is why we have the greatest gambling losses in the world, is utter capture by gambling interests. This has not happened anywhere else in the world. It's why I often say the world looks at America and says their blind spot is guns, the power of the National Rifle Association. The rest of the world looks at Australia with the greatest gambling losses per head in the world, 40% higher than the nation that comes second, and says their blind spot is gambling. Literally, gambling interests captured state governments, and now with the legislation on gambling ads in the federal parliament has captured both sides of politics there.
Okay, before we get on to the government's proposed gambling reform package, what would you say to the people who will say to you, let's forget the VIP dens, those horrible, dark, smoky dens in every hotel. And by the way, the VIP signs had to go, but people still knew where to go. But let's look at the big clubs, and we'll look at New South Wales. Massive clubs with indoor waterfalls and great amenities. The clubs will tell you that it was the poker machine money that's enabled them to also give huge donations to the local community, to sporting clubs and service clubs, and provide fantastic amenities for their members. Why are you bleating about this?
Because those clubs aren't just clubs. Those clubs are effectively casinos. When you have 500 plus poker machines, you're not talking about a club that might have 10 machines, where you know your patrons, where, like responsible service of alcohol, you can intervene and say, come on, John, you've been sitting there 2 hours. You've lost so much. These clubs are massive casinos. These clubs are paying their CEOs more than the salaries of the Prime Minister. These clubs are spending the money on gold-tapped bathrooms and indoor rainforests. These clubs, relative to the monies, the swimming in exorbitant amounts of revenue.
But aren't they also donating money to local sporting organisations and charities? And they'll tell you they're giving a massive amount of it back to the community.
And that's been a complete and utter lie. The community benefit figures that the clubs are required to put back in, yes, they put some back in, have been way underweight. The Sydney Morning Herald has done story after story of where the money in clubs are going. A very little amount has been going to the community. It's been going to expanding and gold-plated bathrooms and salaries of executives. It's been going to themselves. And that's because the New South Wales government allowed the clubs to say we will donate and promote who we donate to, and therefore talk up how much money it is. And it will seem a lot of money to the junior, soccer club in the area, but relative to the monies they're making, it's a pittance. It's pathetic. We need the New South Wales government, which I think they're doing, to actually say no. We will dole out the required community benefit that under legislation you're meant to be making because of all the holes in it. That's what's going on.
So let's now circle back to where we are today and the gambling reform package. What is that package? And I believe that if the Labor Party does a deal with Angus Taylor and the coalition, it'll be watered down. What is the package and is it the answer? Take us through it.
Yeah, well, the package is nothing like Peter Murphy and the multi-partisan inquiry over 3 years ago recommended. Peter Murphy was the Labor backbencher who lost her fight with cancer at the age of 50. So a Labor loved hero, really. She recommended a national regulator. The package Albo has introduced has no national regulator. It seems farcical to say this. We have no national regulator of gambling in the country that has the greatest losses. It's the Northern Territory Racing and Wagering Commission that's the de facto regulator. Why? Because the sports betting companies all got their licenses up there. Secondly, she recommended in the Murphy report a ban on gambling ads phased in over 3 years. There's nothing in the Albanese package about that. They're reducing gambling ads to 3 an hour. At the Senate inquiry last week, when the department was asked what evidence is there that 3 gambling ads an hour doesn't expose kids to gambling harm, they had to admit there's no evidence. It was cooked up in the Prime Minister's office with Peter V'landys and the sports betting companies. No ban on gambling ads. Thirdly, she said inducements are predatory. They must stop.
Explain inducements. It's offering bonuses online. Yes. You're losing. They hammer you again online. They give you some free credit.
Not just online. Text straight to your phone. We put $100, $200 free money in your account. They're monitoring every better. And when you're losing, the bonuses, which they call promotions or generosities, go straight into your account. No ban on inducements in this package. The features of it that were good were they said we will ban gambling ads on radio in school pickup hours. It's like, so what? And this was good, we will ban betting logos on players' jerseys and on stadiums. Yes, that's good. But the serious reforms, none of them in there. We had a Senate inquiry last week. The Liberals said, well, we want to do something on inducements, but Albo and Angus, it appears, have a handshake deal which will say, okay, we won't allow inducements that are free, trips to grand finals for people who are losing a lot of money, the VIP gold treatment, but it seems they will still allow the inducements to the regular punter of $100 free money to your SMS in your account when you're gambling. It certainly will not ban gambling ads.
Is this a federal decision that can be made that will control the way the states behave as well? Can federal legislation control the states?
Well, basically, the states control pokies. They have jurisdiction there. And under the communications power in the Constitution, the feds control sports betting companies. That's why they registered in the Northern Territory. But all the ads that you and I see on our TVs across social media come because of sports betting companies licensed that the feds control under the communications power in the Constitution. So that's why that's at federal level, and this package is before the Parliament.
Now, you mentioned Northern Territory. Explain that.
Well, the Northern Territory was the back gate. The sports betting companies said they have the weakest jurisdiction. They won't even charge us much in tax. These multi-billion foreign sports betting companies are paying less than 2% in tax. And we pay them a little bit. That seemed to the Northern Territory government a lot, $5 million for a licence, and away we go. Right. The Northern Territory Racing and Wagering Commission, therefore, is the body you've got to go to as a person who has been harmed by gambling behaviour of the sports betting companies, their predatory behaviour. And that is 3 part-time commissioners who came from the racing industry, who own racehorses. It's such a farce, even saying it is unbelievable, who did not produce a report for 31 years. That's the regulator we have in Australia. The other place you can go is ACMA and say, some of these ads, seem to target me or my children. ACMA is underfunded. ACMA has to deal with every industry in terms of ads, and ACMA has been singularly unable to keep up with the complaints from the public about the predatory gambling ads.
Yeah, ACMA is the Australian Communications and Media Authority, which when I worked full-time in commercial radio, we had to answer to, and that's what we're talking about here. So Darwin was a cheap backdoor way for these online gambling, what would you call them?
Well, they're
Goliaths.
They're Goliaths.
They were able to operate because they were cheap licenses, cheap taxation, 2%. Wow. And so that's why the Northern Territory is often mentioned. I'm glad you explained that. So back with the gambling reform package. What to you, Tim Costello, is the perfect reform package?
Well, the perfect reform package is what Peter Murphy recommended, a national regulator, a phased-in over 3-year ban on gambling ads. European nations have already done this, Luke, and people still have the right to punt and gamble, but you don't have kids seeing ads. It's to treat gambling as a health issue, not just the sport issue. That's what Murphy Report recommended, to ban all inducements. That's what Murphy Report recommended. That's what other nations have done. That's what the package is. That's not what the handshake deal between Angus and Albo's about.
So the reason there's pushback is obviously because of the revenue that these organisations deliver, because there was a ban on cigarette advertising. And there was a lot of pushback. The Tobacco Institute and the tobacco companies had massive power over governments, didn't they? But no more tobacco advertising.
So 80% of the public want the ban on gambling ads. Normally, your theory of change in a democracy is if 80% of the public want it, the politicians will follow. No, not here. Why? Because of 3 very powerful vested interests: the sports betting companies and their donations to both sides of politics. Secondly, the AFL and NRL. AFL and NRL get a cut in every bet.
Of course they do.
They get massive inflated free-to-air TV license. Channel 9 has NRL, Channel 7 has AFL. The sports betting companies have made the AFL and NRL rich in the sense of an extra $50 million a year from gambling ads. The third big vested interest is free-to-air TV. 9 and Fox and 7 have literally said, we're in structural difficulty. Streaming is killing us. People are moving to that. If you take away our gambling ad revenue, which is about 15% of their revenue, we're really in trouble.
But Tim, they said exactly the same thing about tobacco advertising, and I know because I was in Bathurst, the Bathurst 1000. Every car was sponsored. Just about every car except Castrol was Winfield, Peter Brock, Marlboro, Peter Jackson. I don't need to mention more names, but the tobacco industry kept motorsport alive, and they all said it's going to be the death of us, but it survived.
And this is the exact argument being used that the tobacco companies used. The parallel with tobacco is really helpful because tobacco is legal and it's an adult product. There may be people wanting to ban all cigarettes and organisations, but I support the right of adults to, have a smoke. I'm not against that. Don't like it, but it's legal. Gambling is the same. It's an adult legal product.
It's free choice.
Free choice. I support that. But the capture by the tobacco industry did not end football and sport, though they cried out, and cricket, as the Benson and Hedges.
Benson and Hedges World Cup. My God, it was.
It didn't end it. The gambling industry has used exactly the same arguments. We won't be able to fund junior sport or AFLW, NRLW, women's sport. All the same arguments. This will be the end of sport as we know it.
Hang on, rugby league, it was the Winfield Cup.
Exactly.
And so when that stopped, they said that's the end of us, and it wasn't.
The sky will fall in. We know this is lies. We know this is simply the fear tactic. But I think actually, Luke, if I was to weigh those vested interests, the most powerful vested interest is actually the free-to-air TVs. I think both Albo and Angus have said, if free-to-air TV turns against us, this is really politically difficult. Why I've been urging them to be bipartisan and stand up to them. By the way, John Howard yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, John Howard yesterday urged the recommendations of the Murphy Report, a late intervention. The Liberal Party are meeting at the moment as we talk to sign off on the weak handshake deal between Albo and Angus. A number of Liberal backbenchers are really upset about it. John Howard said, in the press, Sydney Morning Herald today overnight, and if you have to stand up to corporate interests, I say stand up to them. He was talking about free-to-air TV. John Howard got it right on guns. John Howard is, again, absolutely right on this, and I hope the Liberal Party listens to him. Let me just quote John Howard because I think it's really important.
Please, yeah.
He says, I think it should be the attitude of all the major political parties, both Labor and Coalition, to legislate in the public interest. And if that means disappointing major companies, then disappoint them. It's a very poor thing that young people grow up thinking that gambling on sport is a normal part of life. John Howard pleading with his party to do the right thing, not this weak deal that has been reported by Angus Taylor and Albo.
See, the other thing is, on both sides of the political fence, you will have backbenchers who will be in absolute fear in their electorates that if they are seen to be inhibiting the gambling lobby, they'll be attacked. And we've seen that happen in their electorates, and they'll be absolutely hammered because they got a lot of money. The gambling lobby has a hell of a lot of money, and we've seen it happen here in Australia where local members who have stood up it's a massive witch hunt.
So with pokies, there is huge amounts of money, and therefore you've had outcries. Back in Gillard's time, she tried to introduce the cashless card, which later Dom Perrottet tried in the last New South Wales election. So you lock in your losses at pokies before you sit in front of that mesmerising machine. Alan Jones and the Hotels Association and Clubs New South Wales ran the mother of all scare campaigns against Gillard, saying it is un-Australian, and used people stirred them up saying, at the club you won't have your cheap Palmer and your cheaper cappuccino if Gillard's reforms go through. And they defeated the reforms. At federal level, the sports betting companies are not putting that much tax and even donations into the federal parties. The federal level, the threat is actually much more AFL, NRL and free-to-air TV. That's really the federal politics at work.
But Tim, if I can just remind you and my listeners, and please, listeners, you can look this up. I'll give you two examples of politicians who wanted reform that were absolutely hammered. And just in recent memory, you remember David Pocock? Who was that independent ACT senator? Ejected from the Federal Parliament Social Sports Club because he publicly questioned the club's acceptance of sponsorship and lobbying. Do you remember back in 2023, Victor Dominello?
Yeah, I sure do. I was a good friend of Victor's.
A former New South Wales Liberal minister who faced enormous, intense, orchestrated campaign from Clubs New South Wales because he pushed for mandatory cashless gaming cards to curb the money laundering problem. And that's just an example. So any backbencher, you don't even have to be a backbencher, any politician's going to say this is political suicide, I'm going to get hammered here.
Yeah, so that was absolutely true. I think the tide has turned in the way the public now talk to their backbenchers, actually, Luke. The fact is that when Dom Perrottet 2 elections ago said, I'm going to introduce the cashless card, backed by the New South Wales AMA, the New South Wales Police Commissioner, the New South Wales Crime Commission, Perrottet was leading an old stale government, 3 premiers, 12 years in power in New South Wales, was always going to lose. But forced Mins into minority government effectively at that first election because the public by now was sick of pokies. By now, they were going, we're seeing the damage. When it comes to the gambling ads, every one of us in Australia has now lived experience with gambling. With pokies, it's less than 30% of the public that play the pokies. So the gambling industry had a strong argument. You don't have to go into that den. You don't have to gamble. And 70% of us weren't directly affected. Because of gambling ads, $1 million a year on free-to-air TV, every single Australian is now affected. We're all saying, how come my kids ask what is a multi-dad? What's the odds on this game? So public opinion has changed, and I would say now backbenchers are having the public say, gambling is out of control. That's what backbenchers are telling me they're hearing from their community.
Well, are they willing to put their seats on the line, though?
Well, Dom Perrottet and the Libs were at that election. They lost, but they lost for other reasons. An old 12-year-old government, 3 different premiers, you might remember.
I do,
Mike Baird, Gladys, then Dom. But I think when it comes to vested interests, the public, it's dawning on them that the vested interests, not democracy and their will, is actually what's running the nation. The penny is starting to drop.
So are we all, if I can use the pun, are we all getting played?
Yeah, we're getting played. This is not happening in any other nation. Like Americans and gun reform get played by the NRA, National Rifle Association, we are all getting played by the gambling vested interests, backed by free-to-air TV and sporting bodies.
How much money does the gambling lobby?
So the latest figures were something like $405,000 over the last 5 years to Labor, about $360,000 to the Libs.
Both. And all that is public domain on the pecuniary donations registry. So we can all see that. It's not a secret. Yep. It's all transparent.
Yep. Well, it's all revealed much later. We need real-time disclosures. But yes, eventually it's transparent, yes.
All right. Well, let's see what happens at the end of this week. And I want to thank you very much, so much again, for giving us so much time. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating thread in the tapestry of Australia, isn't it?
It really is. And, this notion that we have the greatest gambling losses because of all cultures, we like gambling more than any other is just BS. The Chinese, the Irish, the Kiwis, the English all boast about loving gambling and being the greatest gamblers. We have the greatest gambling losses because we have the weakest policies and we have been captured by vested interests. That's the real story, Luke.
Reverend Tim Costello, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure. Go well.
Time to go motoring with James Ward. He's got his brown leather driving gloves on. He's got a little cap. It's a tweed cap. The roof is down. The wind is in his hair, and he joins me now. Hello, mate.
You're selling the dream there.
Yeah.
And actually, you are selling the dream that I'm going to take in on the 27th of September. Anyone listening?
What are you doing?
There is a thing called the Distinguished Gentleman's Drive, and there was a ride, but there's now a drive, and basically it's open to vehicles that are over 40 years old, and it's to raise money for Movember. It's a really great cause, but they have these drives in pretty much every capital city on that day. You got to go into it, so you've got to wear. You need a car that's over 40, but you've got to dress in the tweed cap, in the 3-piece suit with the driving
leather patches
gloves.
on a tweed coat with leather patches on your elbows. And driving gloves.
This is it. So I've got myself a very snazzy little Porsche 356 Cabrio that I'm using for the day. So it's a 1960, I think it's a 62. But I need to get the attire so that I look distinguished.
Well, that's a 64-year-old car. And I think of the classic hood-down cars that we grew up with, and look, most of them were English. And I'm talking about the MG, which was very popular.
Austin Healey's.
And the Triumph Stag.
Yeah, Stags. Yeah. TR4s.
The Triumph Stag, which had a V8. The Triumph Stag had a V8.
Yeah, it was infamously 2 4-cylinders smooshed together.
Oh, was it right? And my old boss owned 2 of them, one for his wife and one for him, and they stacked it. They had a very bad accident in one of them, but they loved the little Triumph Stag. And then, of course, they got married, and then they had children. So there was enough room. I had a friend who had an MG. It was British Racing Green.
Oh, that's the best.
And there was just enough room for a picnic basket.
And that's all you want. Remember the little rack that you would have on the boot to go? So look, it was a better time back then. Mind you, right, for the modern world, you can still buy a Mazda MX-5, which I reckon is fantastic that they're holding on to that, because that is so much car for the money, and it's very affordable. It's still an open top. You can still get it as a manual. It's a really great little thing.
And I remember the last of the big bangers, the Group C's at Mount Panorama. And you talk about classic two-door sports cars, the RX-7s just absolutely blew everyone away. And Alan Moffat was driving one, sponsored by Peter Stuyvesant. Can you
Peter
believe
Stuyvesant,
that? And there was another one up there, and it was sponsored by the 2SM radio network, and it was Ghostbusters.
Oh, mate, do you want to hear a funny Ghostbusters story?
But do you remember that? I want to hear your Ghostbusters story, but tell us about the rotary-engined RX-7. What made that so special?
Yeah, so a guy called Felix Wankel developed the rotary engine.
Yes.
Yeah. And basically, rather than going up and down like that, or left and right as you do in a Subaru, it goes around. And so it's a kind of a three-faced, well, it's a triangle, right? And it spins around. And so instead of having a four-stroke combustion cycle, you have basically three-stroke, I think, of how it works. But it is, you can get tremendous power out of these things, because to get more power, you have a rotor, you side on, you have one, and then you add another one, and then you add another one, and you have, the more you add, the more power you get. They respond well to turbocharging. They spin at rapid pace, so you get an amazing noise out of these things. But by golly, are they thirsty?
Are they?
Mazda still uses rotary engines. So in some markets, they have a range extender engine in some of their cars. So it's an electric car that has a little rotary that is there as a battery charger. So it's there to do it. When I was at the Tokyo Motor Show last year, they're saying that they're looking at redeveloping the rotary for a modern world. On the weekend, I think it was at Monterey, they had the 787B, which was their Le Mans winning rotary Group C race car, had a fire, and so I think they've recovered. They didn't lose the vehicle, but Mazda and rotary, they do some pretty cool things. But the rotary fans out there are just live and die. They're worth a lot of money now, like RX4s, RX7s. The FD, the final RX7, is worth a lot of money.
I was going to ask you about that. The RX-7 is the one I'm talking about, because that's the one I saw with the big flared guards, the big rear spoiler coming off.
There was
a
Triple M one, Triple M sponsored one at Bathurst in the FD. There was a BP sponsored an FD at Bathurst back when they were in the sort of production GT.
I just remember the Peter Stuyvesant and Alan Moffat one, and it was so competitive. And the Ghostbusters 2SM one, I wonder if we can find a photo of it. You still see them around on the road, but what happened to them? Why were they so popular, and then why did they disappear? Was it the thirst?
Yeah, Mazda was the only brand really investing in them. Look, you had a few others, but Mazda was really the only one. They are not efficient. And
really?
You use a lot of fuel. The idea in an efficiency space, and you have so many other brands investing into their standard four-stroke combustion engines, to kind of have a blank sheet of paper and invest into rotary, it wasn't worth it for other brands. But Mazda still do, and they still talk about it, and they still are looking at things. So it's pretty exciting that you've still got rotary as a potential.
There we go. The Wankel.
The Wankel,
rotary engine. That's the real name. It was Mr. Wankel.
Mate, before we get into it,
it's up there with Thomas Crapper. Yes,
this is it. Ghostbusters. So I look after the social media for a friend of mine. He runs a classic Porsche showroom here in Melbourne. I don't know if you can see this, but I took a screenshot.
Yeah.
Ray Parker Jr. liked one of our posts, and he's liked a few of them now. And the post in question was Matt, who's the proprietor, getting a 992 Turbo ready.
Yeah.
But Ray Parker Jr.
who sang the song,
has liked something that we've done. This is peak social media. This is why we do it, is to have a one-hit wonder guy who's got an incredibly
he had another hit,
amazing back catalogue.
When you're in love with the other woman, it makes me want to grab my guitar and play it all night long. And I used to say, that's a funny name, calling it a guitar. But he did have another hit. But yes, Ghostbusters was his big hit.
Ghostbusters. So that's it. So Ray Parker Jr., if you're listening, you made a young guy's day. That's it. That's it. We ain't afraid of no ghost.
Who you gonna?
I can send that through to Kelsey if you want, just to frame it.
Please.
Actually, you know what? I've got a framed letter on my desk. Somebody just sent us an email saying terrible display of driving, James Ward, from Ray, and that was it. Like, that's all it is on this email. I'm like, what are you talking about? Where was I? What is it? And I love it. I love that I've just had this. Someone's taken the time I believe it was off the back of one of our TV episodes because I was talking with my hand, maybe steering with one hand or doing whatever. I'm a professional. This is what we do. But I just love that someone's just gone, gets the email out, terrible display of driving, James Ward sent.
Oh, you've got to keep that. You've got to keep that. Hey, listen, I wanted to talk to you about something that I noticed the other day, and I bet you have something to say about this. And I talked to Rod Hannafy on our Truckee Tuesday segment about potholes, and Rod says, if you've got to report them, and if they're reported and nothing's done, you can actually get compensated if the pothole causes damage to your vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, apparently the story this week, James Ward, is that less than 2% of Victorian motorists actually bother seeking compensation for damage caused by potholes.
Yep.
The documents obtained under Freedom of Information show drivers are facing virtually impossible odds when seeking repair work payouts for damages caused by the state's broken road network, with 98% of people turned away.
Yep.
Now, are you or are you not entitled to compensation if your car's damaged by a pothole? Can you take me through this story?
Mate, this is peak bureaucracy, right?
Right.
And it is disgusting. So the roads are not repaired around the country, but Victoria is diabolical, right? And even main roads in the city have craters in them. And what you see is these, and again, there's other news stories that, I'm not really in the funnel to go through, but the significant corruption and ridiculousness of the Victorian government is being brought to light. That aside, right? You've got a government that's not investing in road maintenance in any way. And you've got these giant craters appearing in city roads, in suburban roads, in our sort of regional highways, so high-speed thoroughfares to get people through. There are some really bad ones. There was one the other morning in Gippsland where I think it was 40 cars, 40, have been left by the side of the road because of this stupid bloody crater there.
Wow.
Now, Vic Roads, or the government, has a thing. They have a pothole compensation scheme, whereas if damage is caused, you have a minimum value of damage of $1,681. Now, how they have come up with that, God knows. That's the government for you.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, if you have a regular car, you're not running a 22-inch diamond polished on a Range Rover or anything, you've got a regular car and a tyre, the odds of a new rim, even if you smash that rim and need a new tyre, the odds of that costing over $1,600 are pretty slim. But let's say cost you $2,000.
Yeah.
You only get compensated for what's above $1,600. So the government doesn't spend money to fix the roads. You fall down a giant crater that they are supposed to fix, that they haven't, and they go, sorry, we'll give you a couple of $100. The fact that potholes are now an election issue, forget education, healthcare, taxes, it's like, fix the goddamn roads. That is your job. The other thing that you get, and this is, I don't know if this is national, but it's certainly a Victoria thing, you ring Vic Roads, right? It's in the title. Maybe they are the Roads Management Authority, Vic Roads. They'll go, yeah, we're not in charge of that road. That's a local road. You're going to need to go to the council. And you go to the council and they're like, no. That's not us. That's a federal road. They need to do it. And it ain't ever a federal road. I'll be clear. Roads are state-based. You get passed around. They have made this as hard as possible. Now, what I would like is every single politician in every single seat if they sit up in the Parliament House of each of the capital cities, I want them in their own cars to go and drive some of these routes. Not a government car, not sitting in the back of some, nice Mercedes. I want them in their own car that they pay money for and drive in regional Australia. And when they fall down a bloody crater, they have to pay for it. And the other thing too, you do see maintenance crews out there and they are literally pouring sand and gravel in there and going, bloody job's done, boys, let's go. They're not repairing the roads. They are absolutely band-aiding these things because as soon as it rains again, it washes it away.
Of course it does.
And look, this is not a slight on road crews. They are doing what they're told to do. But because the government hasn't invested in regular maintenance, and it's like everything, you got to service your car, you got to go to the doctor, you got to do these things, you got to look after various parts of it, things need maintenance. It's fine in a car. You're coming up, it's raining, you fall down, bang, front left wheel, because it's normally that. Tyre pops, rims damaged, you're on the side of the road, you got to change it, or you call the roadside assist or whatever it is. But, you're alive, you're just really annoyed and out of pocket. Imagine you are on a motorcycle, right? You go down one of these, you are dead, right? This is not that you go, oh, golly gee, I've had a bad day. You are in a life-threatening situation, especially if it's raining or dark. The government doesn't care. The fact that they are not out there. I want every single politician out there in high vis with the proper road maintenance stuff, fixing the roads themselves, not putting on a hard hat for a press conference and pissing off back to the office. Fix the goddamn roads, right? This is your job. This is what it is. Our taxes pay for roads. You have roads, state-based road management authorities. Vic roads. Fix the roads. That's it.
And talking to Rod Hannafy, imagine you're in a truck and you're doing 90 kilometres an hour. You're towing 65 tonne.
Mate, yes.
And you hit a pothole and you do a steer tyre.
It's insane that this is not. Remember they used to have Clean Up Australia Day and all that kind of stuff, and we'd all get together and do it.
Ian Kiernan.
Mate, fix the goddamn roads. If some politician is sitting in an office going, yeah, it's pretty bad, anyway, I'm going to get into the back of a state-funded limo and go home. Mate, get a spade, get a high-vis, get out there, do it properly, shave it down, dry it out, put some road base in there, put the hot mix on top, do it right. Don't just fill it full of bloody sand, you moron. It's So look, I have strong opinions on this, as you may.
Oh, I can tell he's fired up. Hey, listen, if you got a photo of the worst pothole you've encountered, send it in.
Yeah, we had one about 2 years ago near here, and it had been raining and a drain had washed away, and it was like you'd come down a road and it was like a gap like that, hard edges, really deep. And one of our team came down we were in a press car. It was a Volvo wagon press car, and it shattered the wheel. Wow. She's on the side of the road. The car's listing down like that.
Yeah.
No idea. The council says it's Vic Roads. Vic Roads says it's the water management company. The water management company says it's this company because no one took responsibility. We had to go and ship in a new wheel from Volvo to fix it and do all the thing. Mate, I've got a photo of this poor bloody car there, but that one in Victoria the other day, 40 cars. Like that's insanity that they are. You think of the lost time of productivity of all of those people, what that costs versus maintaining, not just fixing, maintaining roads. But no, that's okay. Victoria's going to build a tunnel to nowhere that nobody uses, or they're going to...
I know.
Insanity.
James, another thing I wanted your opinion on this episode was there was a survey done by Monash University, and they surveyed 1,000 new parents in Australia. They found that 90% of them admitted to driving tired.
Oh, yeah.
After an average of 6 hours sleep a night because of the kids, and the reduced sleep causing a range of issues, including making them an angrier driver, most importantly, a dangerous driver.
Yeah.
How many people do you think are out there that are actually driving tired? Now, when I used to finish work at Triple M, I forced myself, because I remember driving down the Wakers Parkway home one day, and I got to Deep Creek and I thought, how did I get here? And it was really scary. So I found a service station that was exactly halfway home. It was undercover, it had a light and it had a camera, and I would have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it made all the difference. And so that was when I was a shift worker. How many Australians, not just parents, but how many Australians are driving tired?
Right, I reckon all of us, right? Let's call it out. If you've got young kids, every single one of you is exhausted. If you are, at the moment, how many people run multiple jobs because it is tough out there? You're working late, you're not getting enough sleep. Like, all of us are driving tired. You can't breath test for tired. You can't really manage this. You've got like eye droop monitors in cars now. So they are, those things that are there are an attention monitor. So they are there to try and stem this. Because, that experience that you had, I would reckon, honesty.
It was scary.
Have had that,
It was
right? Where you drive along and you're suddenly like, oh, I don't remember that last stretch of road. You sort of go into autopilot. So whether it's your brain, just either way, not good, right? What we need, there used to be a campaign here in Melbourne. It was about that micro sleeps kill. And it was,
Yep.
But where is that advertising campaign? Where is that awareness campaign now? Yeah, we've done it and people go, job done. No, we need to educate, but I think we also need to support, because if you pull over in your car and go, like you said, I'm exhausted, safe stretch of road, going to pull over here, going to have a kip in the car, you can get in trouble for that. Why are you sleeping in your car? It's like, come on, man. The idea, and you see it on major interstates, you have your rest areas and you see the trucks hold up there and obviously they have sleeper cabs and things. The idea, a lot of the electric cars have kind of relaxation modes that puts the seats all the way back, because they assume while the car's charging, you might want to have a kip or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in a normal car, and not a brand new car, you don't have an attention monitor. You don't have a lie down kind of function. If you're doing long distance driving, I think we need to try and have dedicated and even supported rest areas that are allowing you to be able to go, yeah, I'm going to pull over and have a kip. But I imagine people are worried about safety. People are worried about, well, I've got to get to the next thing. And look, here's the scenario. You're tired. You're going home. You're going, I'm exhausted. I've got to get to bed. You're not thinking, oh, if I just have a 10-minute kip because it's only a 20-minute drive, I'll be all right. You just want to get home. We don't really have a way of managing this. And I'd say the country is tired. As you said, every single person with parents, who's a parent, especially with young kids, you are exhausted. Look, I don't have a solution here, because we all need to keep hustling and working. And it is a really, really systemic problem, is that people are being pushed too hard. Taking a break isn't really normalized. Yeah, the idea of being able to say, so for me, what would be good for employers? We all have sick days. I have more sick days in my bank than I do annual leave, because I never take a sick day.
Yeah.
But I'm tired. And you can probably even see bags under my eyes today.
You look dreadful.
I could probably do a bit of a day off. Having that as a thing, not having to have Ebola to call in sick, but to go, you know what? I'm exhausted. Having a day where you don't have to, go to work, you should be able to do that without having stigma attached to it. You just go, I'm going to spend the day in bed. I'm going to just relax and get some energy back.
Because part of this survey from Monash University also said that they admitted that when they drove tired, they were irritable and more likely to road rage.
Yeah. Yeah. You get, well, you know what it's like when you're tired, when you're hungry. Don't piss me off, right? Like it's one of those things. And again, I say we should all take a sick day from work, but the people I feel for the most are people who have small children who are, whether on maternity leave or whether they've got a parenting sort of set up where one partner works, the other person looks after. You can't escape those kids. You've got to. You can't just put them in a cupboard and go, I'm hitting the sack. As you say, it's risky for your behavior, your attitude. You may be certainly concentrating less. But I think there are studies that say driving tired is as bad as driving drunk.
Oh,
and
100%.
It's one of those things, because your concentration's just not there. You got to keep hustling and everybody's exhausted.
Now, this could be a question for Dr. Carl when we talk to him in a couple of weeks, but I'll ask you, you said all the modern cars have eyelid monitors now.
Yes.
And sleep warning systems.
Yes.
Judging by your body. How far away, I wonder, are we to having something you can breathe into like a breathalyzer, or something you can swab like a drug detector, something that can measure how sleepy you are? And then how will they calibrate that, and what would be the limit? I wonder if roadside sleep or roadside fatigue monitors are available.
Yeah, like it's, we do pretty amazing things with science. I reckon that it is definitely a Dr. Carl thing, because he would know what sort of biology people would have when they're tired.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those things. How do you police that? And again, you shouldn't be, if you're driving drunk or substance impaired, we know that you shouldn't be doing that, right? We all know that that's wrong. You can be, you're penalized for doing those. But being tired, you can't penalize someone for being tired, because we're all tired. How do we manage this is the thing.
Well, it's been proven that driving tired is as bad as driving over the limit. If that's the case, then I'm sure they'll legislate it, and they'll work out a way to measure your fatigue. And just like an RBT, they'll measure you. I don't know. I can see the day coming.
Well, that's it. Whether we have, coffee shots and things like that. But yeah, look, it is it's something that it comes down to personal responsibility here. And again, that's something I'm a big supporter of. You are the person who makes your decisions, but this is a hard one because we are all tired. And I don't want to stand on a soapbox and say, you should never do this. I've done it. I know I do it. I know I'm tired. And arguably you are safer in a regional area at an abandoned kind of roadside pull-in truck stop than you are in certainly in suburban Melbourne. You'll get carjacked. But this is it, right? Like, it comes down to your own sort of personal responsibility there. And I'm not saying this should be a free-for-all. I'm just saying there does need to be a little bit of cognizance of how do we, A, educate, B, support.
Just to finish up with a bit of nostalgia. And, of course, nostalgia
we live and breathe nostalgia. That's why Ray Parker Jr. liking bang.
Yeah, the RX-7 and Ray Parker Jr. I was having a discussion with my father-in-law the other day, and we were talking about how Australia's service stations seems to be down to just a handful, predominantly Shell, BP. I think we got Ampol back, but we were talking about, for example, Golden Fleece, and our good mate Adam McDonald, the expert on memorabilia. Those Golden Fleece sheep.
Yeah.
Especially if you can get one in metal, but there are plenty of plastic ones around, but they still sell for an absolute fortune.
And the oil cans, those sort of, the oil filler kind of conical caps.
Yes, exactly. So what happened to Australia's diversity in petrol stations? Because we've got a big problem with fuel supply in this country, and it seems as though a lot of the brands are gone, and it's say 4 big ones which seem to be dominating. Golden Fleece. What happened to Golden Fleece? What happened to Esso?
Oh, yeah.
Amoco. Weekends up and you shine the car. Listen to the radio, your favourite pop star must escape from the sheep in the street bar. Find someone you like then. Hit the tar. Hey, babe, it's a beautiful day. Fill up the tank and we're on our way, but we got to look out for this escape machine, so we go for the petrol that's nice and clean. Amoco, nice and clean. Did you
I
like
reckon
that?
the bigger question here is what happened to jingles? What happened to songs?
That was a
about
Mojo
the stuff. Where are the jingles?
That was early Mojo, the Amoco one. But whatever happened? Whatever happened to the old service stations? And
Big Oil happened. You've got consolidation of major brands. You've got these massive corporations now. You look at the oil companies around the world, and it is a very, they talk about the oil cartels like it is a massive squillions of dollars global industry, and you do see some small independents in Australia still. You see some small, they're non-real branded, non-big branded outlets, and that's usually people who have had a long-standing footprint there, but they're still buying their fuel from a major supplier. It's not like they're refining it themselves. So you may find that you go to an independent station somewhere in the suburbs, but they're being fed by Mobil, and you don't know. And you've got, again, I don't even know who is the big oil companies, because I think 7-Eleven is a pretty big place to stop, but I think they may be Caltex. But you do get Ampol came back, but I think they're part of a bigger group. It was more of a branding exercise than anything else. Obviously, Shell and BP are big multinationals. You look in other markets, you go overseas and you see all these weird brands because, again, it's a retail branding. And it's like all these things, the actual fuel that's in the ground coming into your car, it all comes from the same place.
yeah, it's a bit of nostalgia that the younger Australians won't know. They won't know what it's like to have someone run out.
No, a service
fill your
station.
car up for you,
Mate,
lift you, pop your bonnet, check your oil, check your water, check your tyres.
That's it. We used to be better. And here's the thing, right? And here's a really interesting one. Last month in July, 48.8% of new cars sold were electrified in some way. 26% were pure electric, right? So we are as Australian car buyers looking at efficiency. I'm never and have never said buy an electric car because it's an environmental standpoint. If you want to be an environmental warrior, go buy a bike or walk. Every car has an environmental scar. But for people who are looking at that week-to-week budget going, yeah, I want a plug-in hybrid or I want a full EV, we're seeing more charging stations pop up. You've got back of shopping centres and car parks. Still not enough, in my opinion, but they're starting to go. But you've hit the nail on the head there, right? You would go into a servo and you would clean your windscreen. You would check your tyres. You would go over the car. You'd look at your lights. You'd be able to buy a bulb if you needed, all that kind of stuff. You would actually be at a service station for more than fuel. And let's be really clear. Electric cars have tires. Electric cars have windscreen wipers and windscreens and headlights and taillights. What I'm saying is, just because you drive an EV doesn't mean you should be disadvantaged here, because you're not making regular stops at a service station. You're parking in a bloody car park behind the council library to fill up your car. You're not necessarily going to the servo unless you decide to do it, to pop in, get a coffee and a snack, and then clean your windscreen. But that process isn't kind of, you know what it's like with a petrol car. The light goes on, you need the fuel, you pull in, and you go, well, I might as well wipe the windscreen. I might as well check the tires because I'm here. But for electric car owners, you actually have to make that a dedicated trip. You're not being forced to go there. So I think we need to look at that as well. And even if you're putting in a bank of chargers at the back of a council car park and then having a ticker tape parade because you're a great council and well done and there's your photo op, put in some service capability there. The problem is you need an attendant. You need someone to fill up the water and check the squidgies and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the idea here of normalizing the service station again for drivers of every power of car.
Can you hear this?
Snack, animal, kangaroo. And what's your favourite car, Australia? Let me see.
I do love a jingle. Got to have a jingle. Why don't we sell cars with jingles anymore, right? Problem is how do you get a jingle that's like, go and buy a cherry? You know, it's not Hey Charger, is it? What was the one that I used to love, and I always think about it, is the Mitsubishi Cordia that used Gloria as the song, right? Like, bring that back. Bring back that kind of hum the tune. What do they call it? An earworm, where you listen to the jingle and it sticks in your head and you associate the brand with the jingle. Bring it back.
Oh, what a feeling.
Mate, this is it. We can even remember, you know how dumb this is, and McDonald's has done this pretty well lately with their ba-da-ba-ba, whatever it goes.
Yeah, that's all they need, yeah.
We all remember the Toyota one, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Right? You say that and everybody's like, it jumps in the air like a Toyota ad. Bring back earworms. Psychologically, they work. There is brand alignment. I would love to see some of these new brands just go, the hell with trying to be fancy and putting in award-winning cinematography in our ads. Just bring back jingles.
We love footballs, meat pies, kangaroos, and
Holden cars.
Footballs, meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars.
This is it. We used to be a nation.
Hey, Charger.
This is it. Do you know what? I would love if one of the new brands brought back a sort of parody, but a remake of the Hey Charger for one of their new vehicles to come in. I would love that. You know, like actually lean into our cultural heritage for something, because you could get a tiny little electric SUV that is faster than an E49 now.
I'm an ideas man.
Yep.
Elon Musk, and you got people driving by and they're going through destination anxiety because they're electric vehicles. Hey, there's a charger.
Mate, this is it. This podcast fixes the pulse of the nation. That is amazing. Amazing. A Hey Charger campaign for electric car drivers. This is why you are you. This is amazing. That is the best thing I have heard all week. Ray Parker Jr. can take a back seat to that. That is brilliant. I love it.
He can't take a back seat in an MG. However, but there you are. Yeah, hey, there's a charger.
Hey Charger. Mate, I love it. I love it.
I think in order to be a creative director in an advertising agency, you've got to have a Porsche and you've got to have a ponytail.
Mate, I'm happy to get a ponytail to have a Porsche.
Okay.
Right, there we go. I'm willing to take one for the team. I'll wear a skivvy. I'll have I used to have owned a Saab, but I would drive a classic Porsche. I would grow a ponytail. I'd end up looking like Terry Silver from Karate Kid. But
that's very good.
Never had a ponytail. Good. Maybe this is it. Maybe this could be my calling.
And don't forget your leather driving gloves.
Right.
James,
I actually have a pair.
I bet.
I'll bring them next time. I'll bring them next time. But yeah, and for anyone, the Distinguished Gentleman's Drive. And you don't need to be a distinguished gentleman, obviously open to everybody. But yeah, it's a great cause. It's a charity raising event. I'll take some photos. So it's in late September. So after that, we can talk about it.
You can hear him, you can see him. He's everywhere. It is James Ward. Drive.com.au. Good on you, mate. We'll talk soon.
Legendary.
Welcome to a show called The Man Cave. Man Cave. With Bona on the mic, it's a good day. Good day. Adam McDonald, Kelsey too. Thomas behind the scenes, producing all the good.
And once again, it's time for a little look inside the Man Cave, which is not the Bat Cave, but it's very, very close. Adam McDonald, the vice captain from Evans Hastings, EVH, is there with his brand new studio. You still need some more artwork on the wall, son.
Yeah, we're working on it. We've got the acoustic panels coming. So just break it up and then we'll put a couple of photos of maybe my glory days on Aussie Pickers.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And the millennial is back with us in her infamous brown coat, her brown jacket that she never takes off. Welcome back.
This is the warmest jumper in the world, apparently, is it not?
It is. It's essentially two really thick jumpers in one. It's very good.
When she puts it in the washing machine, we have a front loader. We don't have a bottom loader, which is, they're great.
Top loader.
A top loader. Never get a front loader ever again. But it won't go, when it's wet, when her jacket's in there, it won't go round. It won't go round when it's wet.
You just have a really shit washing machine.
Anyway, welcome to the Man Cave. There's a fair bit to talk about. What's happening in your world, Adam? What sort of week have you had?
I had, actually, this morning, you know how you have one of those days that everything you touch just turns to shit?
Yeah.
I woke up late, then I went down my 8 flights of stairs and realised if I got my laptop, so I had to go back up again and get it then. I get to the cafe and they don't have any soy milk. Then I get here,
first world problem.
The camera's not working, so hopefully this podcast we're going to turn over a new leaf.
Okay, look, we'll just keep rolling because so far so good, and I don't want to interrupt a good thing. There's a couple of stories I wanted to talk about that the nation's been talking about this week, and a little bit later, you've got some show and tell. It's we have to guess what Adam's got in his hand. It sounds a bit.
Bit elbow-ish, is it?
Well, we'll get to that in a second. What's in Adam's hand? That segment coming up very, very soon. And I've got some good news. Hopefully next week on the Man Cave, we are going to be talking to an Australian legend. Now, Kelsey probably doesn't know about the Brophy boxing tents, Adam, but it's part of Australian folklore. In fact, it's probably more New South Wales and Queensland.
Yes.
But this guy and his family and his sons have for many years now, since the 50s, been touring Australian shows, the regional and rural shows, and they set up these big boxing tents. And he has a troupe of boxers that travels the countryside with him. They're all paid. With the carnival. They travel with the carnival. And people from the public have to pay to come in and go a certain time, a couple of rounds, with his professional boxers. How this has lasted all these years is beyond me, because usually the blokes that come in have a belly full of courage and tattoos, and they take their shirts off and they think, I'll go around.
And they'd be all like shearers and farmers and, men from the land.
100%.
Yeah.
And they're all the young bucks from the town, and they've had a belly full of beer, and they go into the boxing tent and take on the Brophy boxers. How this has survived with liability and insurance and all those sort of things in this day and age is beyond me, but it's still going.
Yeah, I think like you said, Luke, the days of, no public liability and insurance and stuff like that is over. So it'd be interesting to see how the Brophy's still running around and doing these shows. But how exciting to go and watch these things, How exciting would it be?
And once you've got a belly full of beer and all your mates are cheering you on, come on, Adam, Macca, get in there, have a go. Yeah, I'll have a go. Yeah,
mate. Exactly right.
And you're throwing you're throwing haymakers.
I don't think Luke's ever been taught how to throw a punch.
No, I'm showing you how the piss people fight in the Brophy boxing gym.
It's like a windmill.
It's like a windmill, Kelsey.
Yeah.
That's how
all styles are out the door.
And they end up sitting on their ass, and they lose their money. And people cheer them on. It's a blood sport at its very basic, and he's been going for all these years and still going.
How would Wonder Boy do in one of
these?
Just
he called me. When did he call me? Yesterday, and said he's signed up for a boxing contender series that starts in November. So he's going in at 68 kilos, like a little whippet.
Oh my God.
So he's got 17 weeks to get up to scratch. So we're all very excited. Maybe we could put Bonafide on his shorts.
Oh,
Be a
hell
short
yeah.
sponsor.
Brophy kinda reminds me of Trophy, which makes sense, right? It's a boxing troupe. Do you win a trophy?
The Brophy
Yeah,
Trophy.
I wonder what you get.
Pride.
Bragging
And
rights.
Bragging rights, 100%.
Bragging
Now,
rights.
I'm sure maybe you do get a certificate. You'd have to.
But so the premise of he's got a troupe of boxers that he takes around, and the town people from the town and surrounding areas come in to take on his boxers.
Correct.
He must have some pretty handy fellas.
100% he does. And a lot of them over the years have been Aboriginal boys from Aboriginal communities that were a bit lost, that needed direction. He gave them a job. He gave them direction and discipline. It's an amazing story.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, that's coming up.
Don't you reckon there are some people who are destined for certain things, particularly because of their name? And I only thought of this because I saw a TikTok recently of this girl going past a lawyer's office, right? And she takes a photo of the name because the name of this firm, so the first name is Phelan, 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 and the other guy's name is Petty. So the name of this law firm is called Phelan Petty.
Surely that's a Gina.
No, it's
That's
not.
surely.
It's on the building's name, Phelan Petty.
Show us a photo. I want to see the photo of that building.
Right there.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But the comments, one person wrote, I work for a doctor who does colonoscopies. His name is Dr. Rimmer.
Oh, that's very good. That's
Another
very,
person
very...
commented, I know a
That's very
lawyer
good.
called Sue Moore. Another one here, I used to have a dentist named Dr. Phil Moore.
There was the New South Wales director of the funeral. He was the director of the New South Wales Funeral Directors Association, and his name was Ralph Box. Can't make this shit up.
Well, apparently there's an engineering company in South Africa called Firkin Good Civils. I love it. It's so good.
It's like being the ass man, Luke.
Oh, Kramer. I'm the ass man. Who was it? It was a proctologist number plate.
It was a proctologist.
Yeah, that's
exactly
right. Yeah.
So speaking of assholes,
Yes, Adam.
Albo,
Oh, this
can we go there?
Well, it's getting new legs every time we
Every
look.
day. Yeah, every day.
So just to bring people, Kelsey and I have discussed this. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, went on a podcast show. It was supposed to be a comedy podcast called Bush Deep, and he was talking about Japan's...
Even that name's silly.
He was talking to the host, Nikki Osborne. This is after he's done the shag date. What was it called? I keep
Shoot,
forgetting.
shag, and marry.
Shoot, shag, and marry, where he said he would shag Kylie Minogue, and everyone said, "Oh, it was."
Who would he shoot?
No, not
No, they said something different. They said like date.
shag, date, or marry.
I don't know if date was in there. It was they made it very PG.
So anyway, yeah, he said, he would shag Kylie Minogue, and everyone said that was outrageous, and he said, I apologise. But then later on in that same podcast, Nikki Osborne said, of all the gifts that you receive, what's the weirdest? He mentions that Sanai Takaichachi, the Japan Prime Minister, gave him this special royal melon. And then Nikki Osborne says, oh, so did she come in looking like Pamela Anderson? And as you just heard, he said, yeah, she had melons. She gave you two. He had two melons, as you do. Well, that's bullshit because she gave him one.
Yeah.
So he's embellished the melon thing. It was one melon. He's now in even more strife because an ex-Japanese ambassador has said it was terribly disrespectful and could cause diplomatic problems between Australia and Japan. So it's now become even bigger and bigger. It depends on, I guess, who you support and what age group you are, but Australia has been pretty much divided on whether or not it was just harmless fun or whether or not he was acting like a prime minister and very undiplomatic, and was it the wrong thing to do? I spoke to Kate, who was feeling fired up about this. She thinks it's a hullabaloo about nothing. Let's have a listen.
I don't think he was trying to be offensive, and I think that it's something that just is getting blown out of proportion, and we should really be focusing our Prime Minister's efforts and thoughts on things that matter. Build more houses, help us sort out the cost of living crisis. There are so many more important things that we should be talking about, not Melon Gate.
Do you think this is going to affect relations between Australia and Japan?
Oh, I think if it does, then people need to just have a bit of a wake-up call and a reality check. I'm sure she's got more important things to worry about as well.
Was it undignified?
Look, I think he's trying to be relatable. I think he's trying to appeal to a younger audience, and these are the kinds of things that they think younger people are interested in and will respond to. But again, I'm sure that we can frame up things that are more important. I'm sure the younger generations have more important things to worry about. They're the ones most affected by the cost of living crisis.
So that's the voice of an early 40-year-old. Kelsey's already voiced her opinion. She thinks, a bit like Kate, there are more important things to worry about, and who cares? It was a bit of fun. Vice Captain.
You know how some people are naturally funny and some people aren't? So he's just trying to be funny and he's not. And I didn't have it, I heard the audio before I saw the visual, and I didn't have a problem with it until he's doing these ones.
And it was and she only gave him one melon.
Exactly.
So that's
so
him.
He's directly referring to
Breasts.
her breasts. Directly. And he is the Prime Minister. What the fuck's the Prime Minister doing on a comedy podcast anyway? It's only going to cause your strife. Everybody's right. There is more important things to be focusing on, but he needs to be pulled up on this because it was out of line. It was totally out of line.
I think the Prime Minister, and Kevin Rudd used to do it, you go on Kyle and Jackie O and Whipper and Snipper or whatever they're called, in order to get their policies in their face and get them across to a younger audience. So I kind of get it, but he could have just stopped it with the shag and dag and Kylie Minogue, whatever it was called thing. He could have just said, "Look, I've only been married 6 months. We might leave that one alone," and then shut it down. But he played the game.
Yeah.
And then the melon thing a little bit later on.
But you look at past prime ministers, right? We've had some funny ones who are naturally humorous people, and there's ones that are absolutely deadpan. Johnny Howard, 0. Bob Hawke, 100%.
Bob Hawke would have got away with it.
Absolutely. Bob Hawke. Paul Keating would have got away with it.
Bill Shorten, not.
No. Scott Morrison, no.
No.
There's naturally humorous you're naturally humorous people, and there's people that just got nothing. And these guys got nothing, and that's why it's come across so badly. And as soon as he did this, that's enough.
I think your generation is just too sensitive.
Oh,
Your little daisies.
If someone referred to you, Kelsey, said, I saw Kelsey the other day.
Kelsey gave me some melons. Kelsey gave me some, as you do.
But you're taking it out of context now. You're completely
It's not out of context.
How?
It's not out of context. No. I mean, I think there's going to be repercussions, because the Japanese are so deeply respectful and they don't put up with this shit. And he's directly referred to her chest.
And did you notice
to try and get a laugh out of a podcast?
And did you notice? Did you notice that Nikki Osborne? She didn't know that the Japanese Prime Minister was a woman.
No, and she was sort of leading him on, she was fishing.
Yeah,
that's why she said the melon, and then she said, then she mentioned 2 melons, and then so he went along with it. So they're both as guilty as each other. I mean, but that's her job. She's her job to get people to be, we're talking about it. I'd never heard of her before this.
Hey, why don't she? Yeah, she was very lucky in what we call a gotcha moment, which is now everyone talking about it.
Yeah.
So why don't we run a poll here on the Bonafide podcast? Does the Prime Minister need to apologise to the Japan Prime Minister for his melon comments, or is it out of context? Is it just a bit of fun? And do we all need to grow up and toughen up, as Kelsey would say? Let's take a poll, Kelsey, and let's see what comes through in the next 7 days.
Now, just quickly, we have something to follow up on. So I did put up a poll and I asked people, self-checkout at Woolies or Coles, where do you land?
Yeah.
The top vote on this poll, it actually is a tie between I've never really thought about it and it's stealing, but I understand why people do it. Actually, I got that wrong. The top vote with 30% of the votes. Skipping the scan on something small is stealing whatever it is.
Yes.
That was number 1.
Of course
and
it
then
was.
in second place was it's stealing, but I understand why people do it and never really thought about it. And 19% of people voted a sample while you shop, a grape, a taste isn't stealing to me. So there you go.
Why is taking a grape stealing when you can go in and if you're under the age of 4, you got free bananas and apples? Why is it stealing if I take a grape? I'll take a bunch and put it in the trolley and finish it by the time I get to the dairy section.
So when is stealing not stealing?
Maybe when it's-
deliberately under-scanning something. So scanning an avocado as an onion.
No, because they've got the cameras there. You can't do it. Unless you're eating red avocados, you won't get away with it.
Did you fill out your census? Did you do it on time? Did you know there was a $364 a day fine if you didn't do it? So the Minister for War and Finance, who does these online things, and God, she hates them. She went online.
Why didn't you do it?
Because I was going to bed, and because I'd been up early recording. And she does our travel stuff online. She books stuff online. She is just so good at it, but God, she hates it. And she put in a wrong number on one of our birthdays or something, and it wouldn't accept the past number that they'd given her. So she had to go start all over again, but she eventually got it done. They threatened Australia with a $364 a day fine for every day you didn't fill out the census. Then the Australian Electoral Commission said, no, well, we didn't really mean that. You got 7 days. And if you still don't do it, you got another 5 days. And then if you still haven't done it, someone might knock on your door and say, can you do it now? So it was
I've done it.
I think you're going to be.
Done it?
No, I was working Tuesday night.
Adam, you got to do it, bro.
Are you gonna
I'll do it tonight. I'll do it tonight.
Do you think you should pay a fine for not filling out the census?
No.
Do you think you should pay a fine for not voting?
I don't know, because we've been down this road before, because if there's no one to vote for, I don't want to vote. Dick and balls on the ballot, you're away. Get yourself a sausage, go home.
I want to get some feedback on the census. Can you let us know? Did you do it? Was it easy? Do you agree with the census? I mean, how else do they plan for infrastructure and other important issues if they don't know how many people there are? I want to know if the most popular religion in Australia is once again going to be Jedi Knight. That's what I want to know.
It probably will be.
Guys, we got sent a video from a listener that wanted us to review. Their comment was, cops are getting smarter. Just before I play this video, I should know.
Oh, yes. This is a great story. This is an unbelievable story. Yeah.
All right. Now, this is posted by 9 News, and the headline is Sex Doll Mistaken as Human Remains. Let's have a listen.
It was thought to be the latest grisly murder mystery, 60 kilometres south of Goulburn at O'Allen, and police tell the public a body has been found stashed in a suitcase on the side of the road.
I mean, the mind runs wild of what could have happened, but we just don't know.
The discovery made by a passing driver at lunchtime yesterday. Walgan Road shut down. Forensics and the homicide squad move in. A strike force set up and police go public. First writing, the body is yet to be formally identified. It is believed to be a female, then appearing on national television.
We are relying a lot on forensic evidence. Unfortunately, the female remains have been subject to a state of decomposition.
But at 9 a.m, the twist no one saw coming.
Look, there is some breaking news. There's no body in the bag. What? There's no body in the bag. In the last hour or so, they've actually tested it and worked out it's a doll. Oh, no. It's a doll.
The news filtering through to officers on the ground. The crime scene then packed up before an admission.
Everyone ready to go?
From Superintendent Linda Bradbury.
We can confirm that the remains found at O'Allen Ford Road, O'Allen yesterday, are now identified as not being human.
So what happened here?
Oh,
There's
it's
so
a
many
sex
things
doll.
here. There's so many things here.
Go on.
Who is driving and it says there's a suitcase, I'm going to go open it up?
Yeah.
Is that just me, or I'm not stopping on the side of the road in the middle of 60 clicks from Goulburn and say there's a dusty old suitcase, I'm going to go and see what's in it? Number
Do
two.
you reckon it was planted?
Oh, 100%.
Well, number two, why is it there? Has someone's wife's found it and said getting rid of it? I don't know. Like, what's it doing in the middle of rural New South Wales? And number three, the police, they open it up and say it's in an advanced state of decomposition, but it doesn't stink. Like, it's got that rubbery smell. Like, there's so many things here.
And so they underwent forensic observation and investigation. If they put the black light on that, it'd look like a fair dinkum.
It'd be a Jackson Pollock. That's what it'd be.
It would be a Jackson. It'd look like a paintball course, wouldn't it?
How did they not know? How did they not open the bag and immediately go, that's a doll? Are they, or maybe has this sex doll industry, has it
yes,
I don't know, progressed where it is superhuman now?
Yes. So I got called by remember Cuz who I got on here about the gold prospecting, old Cuz?
Yeah.
So he's just retired, so he's bored as batshit. So he's texting me like 8 times a day about stupid stuff. But he texted me and said, have you been out near Goulburn lately? And I'm like, no. Why? He said, I think you lost your suitcase. He was telling me that this doll had applied bruises and cuts and like it was made to look like a body in a bag.
Yeah.
What?
But that's his take. And Cuz has a bit of a dubious past.
Yeah, I've heard about Cuz.
This is his sort of domain. So he said the way that these dolls are made, you can get a doll made in any style you like. So someone's obviously liked the idea of finding a body in a bag.
That's so weird.
That is weird, but there's horses for courses. It's all horses for courses. So that's what he reckons. He reckons someone's purposely got this doll made to look like it was found in a suitcase. And after we were having a couple of wines over it, and after our theory is they'd planted it there, gone away, so to come back another time and go, look, I found a body in a bag, and do whatever they do with it. Yes, and so then they do whatever they do with it. But in the meantime, someone else has found it and called the coppers.
Yeah.
It's our theory.
It's a good theory.
It's a good theory. I took nearly a whole bottle of wine to get to that theory.
I just cannot believe that you can order a doll that has such specific attributes. That's so strange.
It's so lifelike. I saw a guy on TikTok that like lives with 4 or 5 partners, and they're just like dolls. They don't move. They just sit on the couch.
Is that like the My Strange Addiction guy that married his car?
It'll be something.
Do you remember that?
I remember that. Yes.
No, what was that?
There's a TV show, Luke, called My Strange Addiction, and it's essentially people who have strange addictions. Like there was one girl that was addicted to eating chalk. One of them was a doll collector, but there's also another guy who was addicted to his car, and he had like a Nissan or something, and he ended up.
It wasn't a muscle car.
Yeah,
something.
It was actually it was so weird, and he essentially admitted to like having sex with the car, and he was addicted to the car.
I don't
married
can
the
you,
car.
Can you play a bit? Can you play a little bit here?
Look, what is that?
Handsome man.
Handsome
It's
man.
a man.
Oh no!
Relationship.
Diversity, Adam.
Chase. He met Chase in a resale lot about 5 years ago.
Oh no!
It was love at first sight. His body,
No!
and everything just together just seemed to fit. And I just felt an instant
What
connection.
is that? Like a Commodore?
No, it's American.
Can we start watching this now?
No, keep going.
My initial reaction was I
Oh,
was
that's
kind of
his re-
shocked. It was kind of weird because it was just hard to understand.
No, this is a G up. I don't believe it, Adam.
It's Middle America, Luke. Get involved.
Objectophilia is when a person develops a strong emotional and sexual relationship with an inanimate object.
Like my ex-wife. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's Middle America. I believe it.
I think it's a G. I think it's Jerry Springer. I think it's bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on that segment.
I'm like halfway. I'm like, surely it's got to be a skit. Surely no one, because it's not so much this, like the act of this that is shocking. It's more the fact that you would go on TV and admit this to a national audience.
But see, even if it is a skit, you're going to be that guy. That's it. You're
Exactly.
typecast. You're that guy. So there's not enough money in the world to say, why don't you come on and pretend you have sex with your car?
No, it's bullshit. It's bullshit.
I don't know.
And I wanted to see the exhaust pipe and the muffler. Imagine dealing with that. I wonder if he's got twin pipes. But no, seriously, that what? Is it 4 on the floor? Was it 4 on the floor?
It's 4 on the floor.
Or was it 3 in the tree?
All right, let's move on.
Seriously. Could be an electric car with a very long extension lead. I don't
What
know.
if the electric car market changed things for him?
I don't know.
That'd be like getting a divorce and getting a younger woman, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
a younger man.
However, the car was a he. It wasn't a she.
Mm.
So there's diversity covered. So that's good.
This is where we're at.
This is where we're at. You've got show and tell for us this week?
Yeah, show and tell. So what I think I might do each week, I'm going to find an object that I'll show everyone, and you've got to guess what it is.
Okay, now we're going to call this.
Oh, it's like the secret sound.
It's like the secret sound. It's like the quickie. It's like the secret sound. And it's called, and now on the Man Cave, it's time for What's in Adam's Hand?
Okay, here it is. So what I'll do, I'll get Geordie, my photographer. He'll send you a little video that you can
What do
post.
you mean? It's a tap.
It's not a tap.
Oh.
So these fold down. This winds down.
I have no idea what this is. Isn't that something the gynecologists use? I think, isn't it?
Exactly what I was thinking.
It's called the Boss. It's probably from the 1950s.
Can you explain what it looks like for the audio listeners?
So it's basically a long shaft with a thread that's got a flap in the midsection and then two folding tabs on the front that are adjustable. It'll blow your mind when I tell you what it is.
What is it, for Christ's
I'll
sake?
tell you next week. We're going to ask
Oh, okay, I get it.
We're going to ask the listeners. So I'll get Geordie to shoot a video of it so you can all have a look, and then next week, whoever guesses it gets a Evans Hastings tote bag as a prize.
Okay, and listen, how much is it worth? That's all we want to know. What would you buy? What would you buy that?
I would probably pay, at a swap meet, I'd probably pay $80 for it. I mean, this is the only one I've ever seen. This is the only one
A
I've ever
wine
seen.
opener.
Nope.
What the hell has Adam got in his hand? Let us know. Leave us a voice message, 0291289311.
Anyway, just have a think. The Boss, and no Google Lens. Come on, guys. Keep it fair. Just have some honest punts. Like, I took it around my staff and only one got it. It's beautifully manufactured. Like, it's a heavy gauge steel, all chrome plated. Total overkill for what it is. But there it is.
It looks medical, doesn't it? It looks medical.
Could be. I don't think you'll get it. It's ridiculous.
Did you need a university degree to be able to use it professionally?
No. Probably a TAFE degree.
It has to do with mechanics. It has to.
That's the last thing I'll say.
All right. What's Adam got in his hand? There it is. And it's called The Boss.
The Boss.
Thanks to EHVA. What do you got coming up?
What have I got coming up? I've got a couple of good on-site sales I'm looking at. We've got a wonderful wine and whiskey sale online at the moment. I'll tell you what's been really interesting is we've had this estate come through where the family are at war. They don't like each other.
Oh, no.
So I've been listing all this stuff that's, it's nice stuff, but they're each saying, I don't want the other person to have it.
You're kidding.
No, so the prices that are going through the till are absolutely unbelievable. It's been wonderful for me. But there's always something happening on EHVA. Have a look at the website. We've just rejuvenated it. It's looking really nice, really tight, really clean. Always something to look at. Families
at war. We want to hear those stories as well.
Yeah, that'd be a good
Are
story.
you bluing with your family? Tell us why. And we might get Granny Sue on it at some point to see if we can't help arbitrate. Remember the Hatfields and the McCoys?
Yes, what was that?
Yeah. Oh, they were these hillbillies, these two families that used to fight and shoot each other. Often depicted in Bugs Bunny cartoons. So there you are. Adam McDonald, thank you so much. Interesting little chat. Leave us your messages. Does the Prime Minister need to apologise for what's now become Melon Gate? Or I guess if we were discussing this in Triple M, it would be John Cougar Melon Gate. And what's in Adam's hand?
What's in Adam's hand?
And have you ever been in love with an inanimate object? What is that object?
And was it your suitcase out at Urella?
Yeah.
But that's really blown Kelsey's mind that someone's made that specifically to be a body in a bag.
I think that's unbelievable. That's the story. That's the story of the week.
I've broken it here.
And hopefully Fred Brophy, a bit of nostalgia, a bit of Australian nostalgia and his boxing tents. We'll have that hopefully next week. Good on you, Vice Captain.
No, Skip. Thank you, Kels. See everyone next week.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Millennial. Thank you, Linesman. Thank you, Ball Boys. And we'll catch you next time.
Bye. Or do you have a thought of the day?
Well, it's just an observation. You've been here and stayed the night plenty of times. Your mum loves sitting in her chair watching true crime shows, correct?
Correct.
And she just keeps streaming them. And, well, lately I've been annoying your mum. The more I annoy her, the more true crime stories she keeps streaming. I'm just wondering, is it a coincidence?
No. Bye.
Bye-bye. Love you. Love you all. except you.